Well, hello again, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good wherever in the beautiful world you are. Welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa. And it's Friday, and I have this incredible guest with me today. Wow, Lira Nikolaev, welcome.
Hi.
I want to welcome you to as my guest today. And
Thank you.
you kind of contacted me a few weeks ago after
Mhm.
we had the show with Jessie, and we were talking about the child soldiers and the way that a couple of years ago she mentioned, particularly Reagan in the 80s, where she was actually present, and there was a arms show, weapons exhibition of sorts, and the weapons were kids. Really, and these were kids who they've weaponized. What they've done is they've taken their spiritual gifts and they've completely weaponized them and can use them literally as um, spies is not the word, depending, I guess, on what they're used for, what they,
Mhm.
what the gifts are. They are completely, and kids being innocent, and especially girls. I remember Fiona Barnett, who was also in a similar program. I can't
Mhm.
say similar. I think each one is different, but was also trained from the age of 1 by the CIA and into the military. And she was what they called the Alice's. There were the Jasons and the Alice's, and she was trained in the Alice program. So it's very, very interesting. So I want to just say to you before I launch in with a whole lot of questions, because wow, this has been so interesting chatting to you last night. And thank you for stepping forward after our show and taking taking the hot seat here with me. Welcome, Lira. How are you?
I'm well. Yes. What Jesse said in 1984, when Reagan gave them the permission, that just I snapped inside because in '86, that's when the Chernobyl accident happened, and Gorbachev, right? Well, it's the Russians. They just jumped on the opportunity to start creating those soldiers. And what happened with Chernobyl, I was 6 years old. I was born in '79, 6 years old. By the time September came, from April to September, I was having sharp pains in my gut. And a lot of other children were just coming down with the various sicknesses. Radiation will affect your heart, your mitochondria, your immunity just goes kaput, stomach ulcers, and so on. They recommended that my parents put me into the hospital for detox. So there I go to the hospital for detox for 2 weeks. And what happened was there was a very, very bland diet. And then there was some blood drawn every day, morning, night. There were shots in the mornings. There were shots sometimes in the afternoon. Um, they would take our stuff from our intestines, the gastric juices. Um, that's kind of what I remembered. And at the very end of the 2 weeks, you had animus, and they will just drain you out of drain the life out of you, but they're just
Wow.
draining, getting the radiation out of you. At least that's what they said. I was in the room. It was just me right across the nursing station. There was a little girl there before me with a grandmother, and the room next to me, it had about 2 dozen girls at the most. There was at the most about 12 of us on that floor, and we were on the last floor in the last wing of the hospital. There were bars on the door. They kept us under the lock. I remember parents waiting outside the door, barred door, before they unlocked for them to come in. Like, it's not like we're going to run away anywhere. So time went by. Um, I was a very angry person. I know a lot of my friends don't think this, but if you ask my sister, she would tell you. I mean, I was brutal growing up, and I didn't know why. I came from a very third
Can I
generation.
Can I just ask you, sorry, and I want to take up with that, but I want to just kind of backtrack a little bit to the initial stages of how this began for you. Because in our conversation that we had off air, I found it very interesting what you were saying. We've learned a lot in the past 2 years about what happens with a lot of our the American survivors and stuff like that who've been in the American, European, and even in the South African systems, right? And what seems to be a common thread there is that you're either going to get your expendable kids, which are going to be used for their sacrifices and rituals and stuff, but then you get your bloodline kids, the hierarchy kids with spiritual gifts. So depending on that, and invariably there's a parent or a grandparent or both that will sell you or put you into the system, and you then get programmed and handled and trained according to the spiritual gifts that you that they pick up, they find within you, that emanate from you, that are yours, basically. I'm sorry, I can't find the right word right now. So that would be the American way and the way we've understood it. But what you said to me, in fact, is in Russia, and you from the Ukraine, I want to just point that out, you Ukrainian, not Russian. But what you explained to me in the Russian system is that they don't really they don't care about your bloodlines. They don't care about that sort of thing. How does the system work there when they take in children like yourself into the system? How do you get chosen then? And did your parents know?
No, none of us knew. I didn't know until I was triggered by tile. We were modeling our bathroom and I had to pick out the tile, and every tile that I looked at, no matter how expensive, I was still getting heart palpitations. Like there's something about this tile that I just can't stand. Don't have peace about it. And then about that same time, this was almost 2 years ago, I came across Dan Duval, Jesse, and Amanda Bice. Like at the same time, Holy Spirit just put that in front of me. And I was listening and agreeing with their prayers to where you are remembering, your amygdala is being open and you're remembering things. And at the same time, it was a daily thing for me to be asking for the spirit of truth to be upon me. I wanted to know the truth. Like, okay. So anyhow, it's through the tile memories start coming back. And I remembered when I was at the hospital for those 2 weeks, one of the times I remember being about a dozen of us in the room. It was a long room, 3 sets of bunk beds side to side. And we were laying there and they put electrodes on our body. And it's the locations of those electrodes are for Kabbalah. It's based on the Kabbalah. Basic Kabbalah, however you said, Kabbalah training. And I remembered as a 6-year-old laying there and thinking, like, they are not putting these electrodes where my pain is in the gut. I'm like, they're missing. I'm going to have to tell my parents that they're not doing it right, So I remembered that, which was just bizarre. Another thing that I remembered was it was a similar room. Oh, and the room was covered. All the walls were covered in tile. And as you know, tile is very easy to wash. No matter how many guts are spilling, feces or blood is spilling on the walls, you just come down, with the hoses and hose all of it down. It's the easiest thing to clean. So a lot of the times when they're doing all of these brutalities on people, they will be in a tiled room for that reason. And so another room was, in that room, similar. It was, again, dim, very, very dim. And there were big steps on there. And there was children. We weren't sitting too close together, but we were looking at a projector, a screen. And on that screen were a bunch of planes, single pilots planes. It was during World War II when they were bombing just everywhere. We're specifically seeing the bombing happening in the planes. And that went into the sleeper soldier program. So sleep, we can touch on it later, or I can go into it now.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Well, whatever you feel. I mean, I'm very happy for you to touch on it whenever. We can definitely speak about the sleeper soldiers. That's very interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Let me finish this part. We'll come back to it. Okay. Yeah, that is something to talk about. So, and then the other thing that I remembered was this time I was in the other room, also tiled walls, very dim, but this time it was a large bed to where you can do whatever you need to do to that person. And it was just that one bed and just me in the room. And again, I remember the electrodes. And of course, every time we were in that room, those 3 times that I remembered, there was like outside of a nursing station with all of the computer screens, the towers. They had a lot of computer screens. So there was a programmer and there were the computer screens. That's the other thing that I remembered. And how they do it is, I am a seer. The reason why they got me, one of the reasons, is because I have the clairvoyance. I can get into people's heads. And that was, you know how to basically travel in the spiritual realm, because we're electrical people who live in the electrical universe. Our feelings are like magnets. So anyhow, it's a thing that passed down from my grandmother, my mother. I have it. My daughter has it. My grandson has it. It's just something that you have that's more, I don't know, highlighted with some people. It's like you were talking about the spiritual gifts. That was one of them. So they tapped into that. And the way so going back to your question, the difference between how US and other countries do it with the bloodliners versus we don't care about your bloodline, we're just going to use you. Russia has been around forever, and they have shed so much blood on their land. Ukraine is just soaked with human blood. You have all these principalities who have the powers. The Bible talks about it, right? And they appeal to those principalities. They want life. They want blood. Blood isn't the life, Bible says. So they're saying like, hey, you've got all this blood. This war is for you guys. We want your powers. We want to tap into your powers. And here's the blood. So they made the witchcraft, right? They made this pact with them. That's their vehicle. That's their permission. The energy, the powers that they have from the entities. And the rest of it is more like voodoo, which is you have
if I'm understanding you correctly, what you're saying is that because Russia is so ancient and because there's already been so much blood spilt on the land, there's already these pacts in place with these very powerful entities. So there's no need to really access more kids with more bloodlines, because that's all in place. It's like the structure is already there.
Right. Especially with iniquity. And the difference between sin and iniquity, you can fall into sin. It was an accident. I did this. Iniquity is something premeditated. You're going to plan how you're going to rob a bank. You're going to plan how you murder somebody. So throughout all these centuries, there's so much iniquity that has collected. And that's another thing, vehicle that they need, highway. And that's there too. So Bible, I have to go back to this because what I want people to understand, that in Revelation 18:13, it says that, talks about the Babylon, the great system that we have, that we're all part of, where they're selling and trading. And the end of it says that they're selling the slaves, humans. And then the last part, and not every translation will have this, they're selling human souls. The whole 2 verses, they're making a difference between everything that they're selling. And human souls is one of them. We're talking about trafficking, right? Sex trafficking and slavery. Now it's time for us to discuss selling souls. This is the future. This is part of the metaverse that is coming in. And meta means death in Hebrew. We have to acknowledge this. People have to understand that your soul can be stolen. Your children's soul, you can almost count on, will be stolen. And you need to tell them how to get it back. we have to wake up to this. We have to team up with the Holy Spirit, go back to the parts that we buried that happened to us. Forgive ourselves, forgive, because eventually you become a perpetrator, as you know. Yeah, they torture you, but then after a certain, so you have to forgive them. Then you have to forgive yourself because you've done the torturing, and then you have to forgive the ones who tortured your children because they tap into your children, and that's another show, another level of forgiveness. But so the way they do it is they've got all these permissions, let's say, to work with the entities, and they program you with 0, 1.
So they're going to find you. Sorry to interrupt you. So they're not after your bloodlines as a child. Now they're after spiritual gifts. So it's really just the energy. Like you, for example, would have had the gift of clairvoyance. Maybe somebody would have had the gift of music, you know, because I know the voice frequency is a very potent weapon they use to open and close things and stuff like that. So really they would have then checked out your abilities at school, I would imagine, or in your social environment, and seen and probably given you little games to play here and there. Good. So they would have groomed you basically at school. And then you would have been one of those that got taken to this 2-week, call it concentration camp, right? At the kid camp, where you were then plugged up and done all sorts of things to, okay, I'm with you. Got it.
Yeah, so let me put in another verse in here, and I think George from the Reveal Report is going to love this because it's about Solomonic magic. And the verse is in Ecclesiastes. Solomon wrote it, and he goes about how your life is. Nothing is new under the sun. When you die, your body goes to, dust. Your spirit goes with the Lord. But then there's another verse that talks about the inner you. Like, you're not dead until this inner you is done and gone. And the verse talks about the cord, the silver cord. It talks about the bowl, gold bowl. It talks about the pitcher. When the pitcher is broken, you're done. And then the wheel of life, you're done. So this is how the programming is. They base everything on that one verse. Everybody talks about the silver cord, and the silver cord is your connection, your oneness with something. They put the desire, when they're creating your parts, and one of the ways that you do it is, when somebody has gone through trauma, let's say somebody passed in their life, you tell them to come and sit down over there, they will. Come and eat, drink this, they will, because they're so under so much trauma, they will do whatever you tell them to do. Right? That just happens with anybody. You're in an accident, they'll do whatever you tell them to do because their brain is just not working. So same here, when they traumatize you enough and then they'll say, hey, do this, you're going to do that. So they've created this silver cord by telling you, giving you, like, you're going to like this. You can connect with this. You're so traumatized that, yeah, okay, I'll connect with this, right? So that's your silver cord. Then you get this altar. You have the gold bowl that the verse talks about. Your brain can only carry one thought at a time. That's why they need so many altars. Whatever gift you have, they're going to make an altar out of it, right? So there's your altar. And then the pitcher is whatever they're programming into you. And that could be like us, many of us, the social media, whatever we let into our body. We made that connection with the social media, and now we're pouring it in. We're kind of programming ourselves too, or listening, letting them program us on a massive scale. But so here it's a bit more specific. Now, whatever they narrative they give you constantly, that's the picture that the verse talks about. And then it talks about the wheel. And if you know anything about any ancient culture, you will always see the sign, symbol of the wheel, image of the wheel, always, especially in Freemasonry, right? I mean, it's just the wheel is there. And the wheel would be, it's like the autopilot, the engine. And we were born, Bible says that we were in God the Father. Our essence was in him, his glory, right? That comes down through us, through the human when we are born. And it has not been tainted in children. their mindset has not been tainted. So this energy is very pure in children, and it's beautiful and it's powerful. Doesn't matter if they're small, it's powerful because they're so pure and innocent. That's why they're after the children that much more. So it's that Bible verse that they're using to program people. Then they throw in the Kabbalah, which goes back to the Jews. I'm Jewish, quite a bit, a lot. So they're tapping into that. And then it's the voodoo, pretty much. So in the voodoo, you have the witch who has the powers, the entities going through the witch, right? Because of all the pacts that she's made, that all the sacrifices that she has done. So now when she has this little doll and she puts the little pins in, right? Whatever pain you want, whatever you want done, you pay her money, she'll put the spell on them, but she will do exactly what you tell them to do. Same here when they program you, because of all the pacts that they've made with the powers above, air of the air. Let's say your spiritual gift, the clairvoyance, right? They're going to assign zeros. Let's say now they need me to be a warrior or assassin, whatever. They're going to assign Athena, because she had the wisdom. You got to have strategy. How are you going to go and take somebody out? So they'll assign the number ones to it. You got to be victorious. They're going to assign Nike. So basically, the different powers that the entities have, they will give them numbers. And they create this little code. And it's in the computer. We're electrical, right? We're constantly having this energy coming out. And they're controlling it through this. I have an implant right here. I'll talk about it in a second. But they create these codes. And now this code is on the computer. Now they can sell it to anybody. So whatever avatar you create, you can call it clone, however you want to call it, right? It doesn't matter what it is. And you can, a robot, you can put that code into them. And it has some of my gifts, and it has the other powers, gifts from the other entities also in there. And they just sell it.
I want to just wrap that up. Mm-hmm. So just to sort of get, because this I think it's certainly very new information for me, and I'm sure it's probably quite new for our viewers as well, or some of them anyway, who knows. But so basically they would then have different powers, as you say, different, Athena would be the warrior one, and you would have different names, different entities, if you will, right, that are assigned numbers. So then they write the code based on those entities with those numbers. So that is the code they have, that they therefore then implant in the avatars that they create of, in this case, you. So they've actually therefore then created avatars of you and are then selling the avatars. So they're not necessarily selling you, but they're selling the avatars of you with your programming.
With my soul. Yeah. And your soul is just, there's layers to it. It's like a ball with glorious light coming through it. It's just a bunch of layer. So you can sell parts of it, like, all the experiences, all the connections that you've made, soulmates that you've gotten created. That's literally like soul parts. So every avatar that they have of me is the soul parts that they have sold, exactly what the Bible is talking about.
Yeah. And
they're selling souls.
So each avatar will have a personal connection with you as well, because each avatar actually then is a personal bit of you, plus a whole lot of spliced up.
Yep,
gifts.
Exactly.
Wow.
Right. And I live outside DC, so there's a lot of people around me who are undercover. They all have their clearances, who work for the 3-letter agencies, right? And sometimes they'll talk just a little bit. So when I ask them, like, well, what is it that you do exactly? They're like, oh, just a bunch of codes. We're just programmers. or just moving codes around.
And this is what they're doing.
And they don't even know what they're doing, but they are controlling souls. They're trafficking souls. You know, that's why it's so secret. It's undercover. Yeah, no kidding. How many people would want to go into that and do that? But there's the undercover. And then there's another part, which we'll talk when we're talking about my daughter's programming. They'll have these places also in their buildings, and there's the 3-letter agencies, where they will torture people. And when you're tortured, you create that altar, right? And that's when you insert that code into them. So they're making their soldiers in those government buildings. And they've got everything under their fingertips, literally. And this just goes on and on and on, doesn't stop. So the metaverse is just, it's preparing this world, setting it up for that metaverse. And
so that's why they don't really need people there in that area to be selling their souls anymore. They have got enough, what did you call it, iniquity, right? In terms of pacts made with the demonics over many hundreds and thousands of years, and that's already in place. So now this is kind of what makes Russia the superpower, because it's not how many nuclear bombs they can build and how far they can shoot them. It's literally having cracked the code of how to completely create a human avatar. And it's not a clone, right? It's not a clone.
There was one, I think so. There was one part of me that I could foretell the future. So there was a bunch of businessmen around me in suits, ties, and they were using me to foretell, you know, what to buy, what to sell, how to go about their business. They used me for that. And I saw myself in a cages hanging off the ceiling in the dungeon. I was buck naked, and there was 3 of me, and I looked identical. Every one of them looked identical. So they were like clones. They were exactly, looked like me, like when I was my late teens, early 20s. That's how I looked. And they were just using me. They'll parade me wherever I needed to be paraded, whatever business, but they would tap into me to know how to go about their business. That's one of the things to disconnect.
So your different avatars, would have different numbers, I would imagine. Each one would have.
Right. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, I've got a story for that one too. Right. One of the parts. Well, during the healing process, because a year and a half ago, after the certain very specific prayers, and the reason why they're so specific, Dan Duval and Amanda Bice does this very well. They understand it because they work with so many people. The prayers have to be specific because they will tap into your organs, various organs, because every organ has a different frequency, right? Like your liver has a pretty good frequency. It does a lot of work in your body. So they attach the Queen of Heaven to my liver, and so on. But so with these particular prayers.
What's the Queen of Heaven?
Ashtar, she's called under different, Osiris, she's calling her different names in every culture. But I think the Bible refers to her as the Queen of Heaven. Vicious, very stunning, beautiful, but so brutal and so vicious. She has a lot of power. A lot of powers are under her. Entities are under her. She's one of the principalities, or higher. Anyhow, so Jesus set me down. Oh yeah, after those prayers, there's some demonic entities like that. They came out of me. Another one was Hydra, that huge snake, water snake, just horrific. And I would feel it. You know, I can see things, I can feel things. And it's coming out of me as Dendewal is praying, and I'm agreeing with this prayer. And the angels came by to pull it out of me. It was I was losing my mind. It was so real. It was so horrific. And then I plopped down, and he's still praying. Like his prayers can be over 20 minutes. And I'm agreeing, like, yeah, just get all this stuff out of me. And he's praying. Then I'm laying down because I'm just white. My brain is just white. I can't believe that this is happening. And I'm laying there, and there's a huge golden snake that comes, a brown snake that comes out of my vagina. And I'm like, okay, I thought the other one was bad. This is just, can't handle it. And then I remember that now and then I just picture, I see this, I have this image actually quite often that I'm being raped with a snake. It's just so disgusting. And later on, I came across one of the videos where another survivor was talking about they do a ritual where they wrap the snake around the wrist, and that's how they will rape the person with that snake. It's just a ritual, right? Another thing, now they'll make a treaty or a pact with the demons. They got to do this. So she validated what I went through. And that's why I appreciate your show so much, and some of the other shows, is the testimonies that people will give. It validates our memories. It validates our crazy thoughts that we think are crazy. It's like, no, there's another person who went through this too. Oh, wait, and there's another person who went through it. Like Fiona, she mentioned about how they're using young girls to kill. Why? Because they look very innocent. You don't see what's coming at all. And then this girl pulls out a huge, big old gun that she can barely hold, and she takes you out just like that. And that's how they use me, right? And that validated, again, exactly that. And like what, going back to what Jesse said, you know, with the president, Reagan, allowing them to do all this, Russia jumped on the possibility of creating all the soldiers, and they did it, right? And then they opened the borders up later in '89 for the Jewish people to leave the country, and they were leaving to Israel and then to US. And Reagan was accepting about 2,000 people a month into US. So they were bringing all these pre-programmed people or programmed people, some of the young people in here, and that's how they got their, I think I will talk about it for a second, if that's okay.
Yeah, please, absolutely.
The super soldiers, right?
Yeah.
We're here. And I heard one of the anchors in Russia was just on the street. He interviewed Putin, and one of his questions was, well, what do we do about all these super soldiers who are out there in different countries? And Putin's reaction was like, they've been well trained. They know what they're doing. They know what to do when the time will come. Like, he acknowledged the super soldiers, sleeper soldiers, who are in other countries.
Okay, please hold that thought right there. And I know my viewers don't like me interrupting, and I'm not interrupting, guys. I'm just trying to get this picture here. So you saying from those kids in 1984 or 1983, whenever it was, with Reagan, when the military weapons were on display, they weren't big tankers and what have you, they were kids. Then Russia bought some of those kids, I would imagine, because they were for sale. Okay. So I'm trying to, I would imagine then, because why I'm asking that question is Russia would already had the technology, right? And maybe taken some more information from these kids to build more of their own soldiers. No, with these advanced kids already.
I don't know. I personally think that they manufactured the Chernobyl accident to have all of these children in the hospital. So here's what I've read recently. There's over 2 million people to this day. It's been 35, 37 years since it happened. To this day, who are registered under this health care. People who are still affected by the radiation, because people like me who have had children, their children are having problems. They go in and out of the hospital, sometimes for weeks. And they can keep on programming even the children's children to this day. So this accident gave them a great deal of souls, a great deal of people who have to go to the hospital, have to, They're conditions that radiation will give you. You have to be at the hospital for days, many of them. Diet conditions, heart conditions, and so on. So they have this continuous flow of children who they have at their disposal, and they're continuously programming them. They don't need to buy anybody else, excuse me. They've got their flow of children, plenty. Okay. I was going to, the soldiers, right? The sleeper soldiers.
Yeah, sleeper soldiers.
So, right. Golly, where do I start? When they were programming us, having us look at that screen at the hospital where the bombers were going by, right? So that image is in our head. Now, the last couple of years, all of a sudden, I started getting ear ringing, but then also any sentimental thing that I would do for my husband, and if he made me angry just a little bit, I would go off and my mind would be with the Russians. And mind you, I don't have any Russians friends. I despise Russians. I didn't know why for years. I tried thinking, like, what is it about me that makes me despise Russians? Why don't I have Russian friends? Why don't I cook Russian food? Like, I don't tap into my Russian culture. Don't care if my kids know Russian. None of it. Like, that's just so weird. It's my background. It's me. Why do I despise them so much? And so I don't think about them. And all of a sudden, whenever I get angry with not too angry, with my husband, I think about the Russians. Now all of a sudden, I'm with the Russians. I'm Russian. They're my brothers. They're my life. Like, that's just weird. And then when I'd be doing these essential things for him, again, I would imagine Russian soldiers. I'm like, that is just bizarre. We've been married for 24 to 5 years by then. Like, why are these images coming to my head? Why do all of a sudden I despise doing some things for my husband, which I've done for, over 2 decades? That was so strange. And then I remembered that programming, the screen with the bombing. Then I started getting dreams about US being bombed. It was dream after dream after dream, where US was under a surprise attack. There's Russian soldiers here on the ground. There's equipment here on the ground. Everything is set for US to go after under a couple of surprise attacks where we're just bombed unexpectedly. And we're leveled. And then at the end, the Russians pilots are flying away and they're waving to people down on the ground by. It's like, hey, we didn't mean it. No hard feelings. We just did what we were told to do. And that type of a thing. And yeah, US was leveled. People, they didn't have businesses to go back to. Everything had to be rebuilt, right? And if you look at some of the other countries, like the ghost countries that China has with the latest technology, you look at NEOM, Saudi Arabia, they have 5G cities with the new technology. US doesn't. What a convenient way for them, an excuse to bring in this new technology, new neighborhoods, new buildings, new everything, if they were leveled quite quickly. Yeah. So maybe that's why US allowed all of these super soldiers to come in. They're prepping this up, setting it up. Just my thoughts.
Well, I think you're definitely not the first person to say that. I know Fiona Barnett is also, we were speaking about it early on, has been saying that it has not made her popular at all. But she knows. It's like, and it's exactly these sleeper soldiers that have been programmed for these end times. And what's interesting is that I've noticed that people who are being triggered now, if you will, are generally between their early 40s to early 50s. So it seems to be, that generation of a decade where there seems to be a lot of that happened then. What is your opinion on that? Why do you think it's that specific age group that was targeted?
No, I think it's just the timing, what Reagan, the permission that he gave, right? And it just, I started unfolding just the way it is.
Yeah, just the timing of the kids at the time and the kids they were using at the time.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, as I was going through this healing process, cutting myself off from all of it, God woke me up in the middle of the night and he said, look up, it was like CCP salt. Wrote it down somewhere, but it's a treaty. It's a Russian-American missile treaty that they signed in 1971, right before Reagan did this, right, allowed this. And the operation was called SALT. I'm pretty sure most people have seen the movie SALT, right, with Angelina Jolie. So if you think about SALT, if you think about the surrogates with Bruce Willis movie, they're showing those avatars, those clones. The whole society is built with them. So I strongly recommend watching the movie Surrogates. I strongly recommend watching the movie Salt. And then Anna. That was another one that really triggered me. Like, oof, that's just too close to home. But all of these, there's several other movies. My husband tells me, like, I'm going to turn this movie on, but you are not allowed to talk. Because most of the time, like every other scene, I'm going like, that's real. That's not a movie. That is real. Yeah, they're real. I'm telling you, people, they are real.
Yeah, so, absolutely. So what type of, if you can share with us, what type of operations as a child were you forced, and I say forced, to partake in? I understand that must be a little bit sensitive possibly, but is there something you can share with us just to give us some kind of an idea?
Yeah, so again, I have to emphasize that the way they programmed us, they did not need to tap into us physically. All of that was already set. They had the stage of everything. So I'm also grateful for my parents' prayers, who pray like to protect us from evil. Yeah, we were protected from evil, but our soul was still stolen, right, and abused. One of the things was, as a child, and I mean 7, 8 years old, maybe at the most, this is the revelation that I have. I'm just going to call it revelation. Sometimes I would get downloads with Jesus, from Jesus, as I'm waiting on the Lord. He will give me the image, the memory, and then other times it'll be through dreams. And your spirit man does not sleep. So I got to set a stage for this. Your spirit man does not sleep. In the Bible, God made covenants with people. Abraham told Mary that she's going to be pregnant with Jesus, right? Joseph. He made covenants with them in their sleep, in their deep sleep. So the things that happen to us in sleep is quite real. Quite real. Spiritual realm is more real than this physical realm.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Life is spiritual.
Yeah, right. And your spirit man will testify back to you when you team up with the Holy Spirit and your spirit. Holy Spirit is the revelator. So they will reveal to you what has happened. Your spirit man sees everything, right? So I was getting these revelations, these memories, if you will. One of them was, I'm running through the woods, middle of winter, and I'm just in my little underwear as a child, pretty much buck naked, running through the snow, running and running around. I'm like, that is so bizarre. Why would I do that? Another one is, I'm brought into this very fancy hotel. The lobby is just awesome, majestic, all the gold, velvet, plush, and there's wealthy men who sit with their bodyguards here and there, and there's a balcony up on top. And so I come in with this huge gun, girl, right, 7, 8 years old, barely holding a gun, and I kill this fat man. As soon as I kill him, as soon as I shoot him, a handler comes in, he swishes me out. These acrobats are coming down from the second level, and they're taking out the bodyguards. And I can talk about that later with the acrobats, because they've got people for various things. You're not going to have one important person who's killed without bodyguards. There's always bodyguards involved. It's not just one killing. You got to follow through. There's the cleanup, right? And all about when it comes to killing, especially with the young girls who are doing it, it's all about not letting the viewer, not the viewer, whoever is going to be killed, to register what's standing in front of them. You have to do it very, very quickly. They don't see what's coming. First of all, it's a little girl, yeah, whatever. And then boom, it comes. It's about that. You know, that was their card that we had to follow through. So that's one thing. Another one is there were 3 teams of us. And to be on this team, you had to make a pact and you had to cut your hair. Oh, we'll have to talk about the hair later. Cut your hair to make this pact. There was a woman, it was a Russian woman, who was in charge of us. And we would be teamed up, and our job was to take out presidents. One of the presidents is kind of on the scene, the other one is not on the scene yet. So it was just after a certain speech or whatnot, our job was to take them out, this country's president, and then that country's president. And then that country would bring up a similar looking president, another clone of that president, that would go on and would kill them again. They'll bring another clone and would kill them again. And it just was a continuous thing that we were doing. It was mainly to slow the country down, like to prevent them from going through with their mission, whatever they had for the world, just to slow them down, saying like, hey, Russia's got this. No, we're the ones who are going to be messing with you. So that was one of the jobs.
Wow.
There's other things, but that's a couple.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. But now, so what's happening to this little avatar of yours that's now done the job? So once she's done the job, what happens then?
To me physically? To my physical body? Oh,
I mean, both. Like because there must be some impact that it had on your physical body as well, since it is a part of you that was actually partaking in that mission. Yes, as well, and the physical avatar of you. What happens with that one?
So I'll mention another part, another avatar. One of the things, I love running through the snow. Like that's just stood in my head. Like, why do I do that? I don't know. Another one is, well, that we'll cover another part. Let me go into another part. You mentioned that some of the avatars would have, like I said, numbers. They would be numbered. So when Jesus was revealing, one of the other things that they used me for was, it was I call it disposable assassin. Disposable.
Because you were a double agent, right? Because you were trained to be a double agent as well. So that hence your love for America 1 minute and then your love for Russia the next minute, and sort of yeah.
And it's not necessarily trained; it was just programmed.
Yeah,
programmed within 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. It's I have seen. Yes, train in the spiritual realm, but not physically, not my physical body, because I did get memories of the training facilities. I've had memories of the labs, but physically I was not there present. So yeah, they were training those avatars, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. It does.
Okay. So one of the parts when I met her with Jesus, what I saw was a girl, I'm 5'2". She was also 5'2", about in her early 20s, chiseled, well built, strong, and she was dropped off from the helicopter into the middle of a jungle. And then I see in South America, and I see a chopper coming down, and then a wealthy businessman coming out of that chopper. She walks up to him, and the bodyguards are there too. But she walks up to him and she bites into him. And like I said, they use girls, right? Innocent looking girls where like you don't see a girl coming out of the jungle and biting you, like just so unthinkable. Yeah. And she bites him and acid starts coming out of her teeth, out of her mouth, and that acid gets into his body and it starts melting his body away, and it starts melting her afterwards. And the only thing that was left was just this flesh on the ground. You couldn't tell whether it was an animal or what, just like ugh. guts left. If the man was too big and I didn't have enough acid in me, or that avatar did not have enough acid in it, then there would be more flesh left. So I asked her, like, what's your name? Because with all the parts with Jesus, I would come and ask what their name was. I would ask what their job was, what their weapons were. So with this one, she's like, I'm 147. I'm like, okay. And she goes, I'm sold on the black market. I'm like, okay. And so she said that it's the BRIC countries, or the countries that have money and want to spend their money in this technology, how to create these disposable assassins, or terminators. There we go. Think of the movie Terminator. Yeah, the movie Terminator. He's got the flesh on, he looks like a human, but he's a machine on the inside, except for these machines are filled with acid, brutal acid. So she's like, sold in the black market. Okay. They buy them when they need somebody killed and without a trace left. So, and then with Jesus, well, hold on a second. You asked me how I feel physically, right? How it affects me physically. Yeah. So this avatar, the way it affected me physically was I would go into these crying frenzies where I would just weep and weep and weep without knowing why. It felt like somebody died, somebody very, very close to me died, and I was crying on their behalf. As you know, kids got married, left the house, I would call them on those days, like, there's something serious happening to you, because it's so close to me, so dear to my heart. And they're like, no, Mom, we're fine. We're doing great. I would call the next child, like, something up. I'm like, no, we're fine, Mom. I'm like, okay. And then I realized that every time that terminator, that assassin, the disposable assassin died, part of me died too. I felt it. And then another thing is, I'm like drinking coffee, right? I add honey to my coffee because it brings the acid down. I will eat meat with garlic because it brings the acid, alkalinizes the food. I will still eat on my little strips to make sure my pH levels are low. Like, it messes with your head. It's just silly, but it does. It's part of you. The crying was not, that was brutal. I did see, Jesus showed me that I saw a lab in Moscow, and there was but 5 of them piled up on the floor, already prepared. These terminators were prepared, me looking, all of them, me looking. And then there was a pile of them leaning against the wall. And I'm looking, and there's, of course, the computer screens, just a typical lab, again, with tile on the walls, and some lockers there. And I was just taken away. It was so real. I'm like, that is just not fair. Those exactly me looking things right there, but they're killing people. And Jesus walked up to one of the stations there in the lab, and he showed me a basket of my hair. And he showed me that to activate every avatar, this terminator, they would take a little piece of hair and they would put it right up here to activate it. So then whatever, I guess, some spiritual things that I've got in me, my personality, I'm a Scorpio.
Your DNA.
Right, that would activate it. So these countries that are buying these terminators, they would buy it, they would transport on a plane, whatever country they needed to be in, where once they got to the place, they would activate me, and then I would carry out that avatar would carry out the deed, and no trace left.
So yep. I'm interested then as well, you know, when they've used bits of your soul, so to speak, in the avatars, and let's say the avatars have then died, been exterminated. Doesn't your soul come back to you, those bits? Where do the bits go that they've then used? Do they keep them hostage, or what happens? How does that work?
There's another verse. It's not in Ecclesiastes, but it talks about snares. God was against their snares. He's talking to the Jews, and he said, I despise the way you are catching souls, and you're catching them into your snares. And the snare would be like the lamp, lampshade sits on a snare. It's almost like a cage, if you will. So that verse tells us when they catch the soul, they put it into a cage. And that's also another thing that God revealed to me was when I was waiting on the Lord, like wherever you want to take me for this healing process, I'm there ready. And we are hovering over the Black Sea. And in the Black Sea, I see Leviathan and I see the water god. What's his name? Neptune. Yeah.
Neptune.
So, yeah. So they've got these two powers over, and I've looked up, scientists found out that the Black Sea is made out of these two almost holes, right? So they got two power entities over it. But in the Black Sea, and I started weeping like crazy when I saw it, it was cages and cages from floor to up, like everywhere, of souls. These captured souls, these fiery, beautiful balls, blue and golden light coming out of them. And they were all in cages. He showed me that. So I call it their soul pantry. Wow. And then he showed me how there were black pipes almost going from the Black Sea to the Mara Little Sea, and then to the Mediterranean Sea. So they're using all of those Mediterranean mythological Greek mythology, all those powers gods. They're just trafficking them, if you will, or not trafficking, but just allowing through the water systems, going through the Black Sea. And that's because it's their pantry where they keep them. And then when they need to use them, they'll take that soul out and they'll use, I want a little bit of Medusa here, I want a little bit of Athena here, Zeus over here. They just like a recipe, they'll create that formula, throw everything in. And then he also, one of the parts, again, when I was detaching myself from it, it was in the not the Black Sea, it was the Moscow River. So every big major city, London, Rome, DC, Spain, not Spain, they're all located right by the river. There's things that are in the rivers and things that they use the river, the water for, and you can go into that, as you know. But in that Moscow, there was also the floor was lined up with these cages with the souls. So again, it goes back to the verse. Once they capture the soul, it is in that cage. And
they will then harvest it whenever they want it, because that's their food, right? That's their louche, so to speak. Okay.
And for me, physically, it felt for 41 years that I was living many lives in one day sometimes. And I had no idea. You think it's normal when you don't know when you're better. From 6 years old, you think it's normal to go from, hey, right now I feel like killing you. Right now I'm telling you to change your mind into this. Like, you just shift drastically from one. And the interesting thing is the personality stopped changing. It was coming through when I was a teenager. If you talk to my sister, she'll tell you how angry I was, how I love to fight, scrub the hair, scratch, just brutal. And that changed after I had kids. Like, I became very calm, very tenderhearted, and that stayed. But internally, it was chaos. It was a battlefield. Like, I'm invincible one day, and then I'm as lonely as could be the next moment, crying. And I know darn well that my life is just beautiful, very blessed. It's not my life that I'm living that is making me have these thoughts or these feelings. They most definitely affect you greatly.
Lira, something's going on with your internet.
Oh no.
Just some of the comments in the thing of the people commenting that very high noise we were experiencing earlier seems to be back. It's not dragonfly. It's not wind chimes. Yeah, it's yeah. Is that better, guys? Lira, can you hear me? Are you there? Okay, Lira seems to have frozen up.
How about now? Can you
Okay,
hear me now? Yeah,
I
is it
can
any
hear
better?
you. I was actually fine. I just started hearing that high noise towards the end, but I noticed in the comments people were saying there's a high noise. Guys, are you still hearing that noise, please? Yeah, it happens when I talk. It's to do with something on Lyra's internet. Not sure what it is, and it kind of gives an echo, but it's
And
fine. You know, we're actually nearly up. We're nearly up to an hour anyway, and we're definitely going to take this interview further because I, for one, am completely mesmerized, and there's so much stuff. There's so much still we want to talk about,
yeah,
but in ending, just to wrap up the session today, or our interview today, and as I said, definitely have you back because there's things on Lenin and the Civil War and the Revolution that all links into all of this. We'll get into that in another time, but the question on everyone's mind, is Putin right now. I'd love to know just from where you've been and where you're at. Don't smile like that, Lira. You look very mischievous. And and also Zelensky in the Ukraine. There's this war going on, and we were talking about, there's either the narrative that the Democrats are pushing, or of course the whatever our community is called, what they're saying in terms of that they're actually adrenochrome labs. There's a lot of bioweapons there. That Putin was actually getting the kids out because Ukraine is very heavy on child trafficking and a very strong Nazi stronghold. So I would just like to know from where you're sitting and what you've experienced and what you've obviously come to understand, what is that about?
and you let me know if you can hear me. If not, then we'll have to take it to another session. But
I can hear you.
Okay, so it has to go back to Lenin. It goes back to World War I. They gave Ukraine and some of the other smaller countries around it to Germany to end the war. Right then, revolution happened, and when the revolution happened, it's Lenin. He brought all of those countries together, republics together. So all of the countries are under Lenin. Why do you think Lenin is not buried? He doesn't have a birth. He does not have a death certificate. If we were, in order for my property to go to my children, they need to see the death certificate. By not burying Lenin, all those countries, land still belongs to Russia, USSR. It's like one of my avatars that they've created, which I have to go into it now, if that's okay, real quickly. I was a diplomat, and this diplomat was stunning. She had 4 bodyguards, and her job was to screw other diplomats over. So on the screen, on the TV screen, you will see the 2 presidents making the treaty, shaking their hand, even signing the book, the treaty, but the camera never shows the wording that they're signing on the treaty. So afterwards, they will go and sign the actual treaty, right? So this diplomat, me-looking thing comes out, gives them the treaty. She's so stunningly beautiful that they can't even think straight. And then the bodyguards make sure that they don't sign this treaty. It's only done for the look, for the public. But those treaties are not signed unless, Russia really wants it. And the way it's the sleight of hand, if you will, but that's what Lenin, that's why he's not buried. All those countries belong to them. So all of this bloodshed, when Russia needs more blood for their entities, right? The system needs more blood. They live off of the blood. And they're like, okay, now it's time we're going to give you back your country, but we're going to have war again because we need some more bloodshed there on that land. So, okay, I think that's why this war is happening. They need a bit more blood, especially before the Antichrist comes in. They just need more power. And I think that's one of the things that is happening now. It's the more bloodshed. Oh, speaking of war, when my implant, I mentioned this implant. It just, when I was going through the healing process, it was itching really, really bad, inflamed, right? And it went away when I was done with this process. And then it got going again when the war broke out. So that tells you that Putin or the Russians, they are trying to activate all of those children, soldiers, everybody who they've invested in, all of those avatars. They are getting them under their wing, under their system, under their control. That's why I was feeling, and it went on for 3-4 weeks until, somebody told me, I've got a word for you, like you're under attack. I'm like, yeah. And then once I start praying, it's like, oh, it's because of this war. I'm still connected to the system. They want their children. And
so what would these kids, because now these children would be around about early 40s to early 50s. So let's say, within that, as you say, that time that they did that, that they created these sleeper soldiers. So I would imagine someone like yourself who has now spiritually done a lot of work on herself over the years or whatever. So spiritually, and I'm a great believer in this, and including the Zappity-Do, I'm a great believer in this, is that when your spiritual frequency is of a higher frequency, you completely null and void any programming that's done to you. I don't say you're not going to go into, you don't have to go into healings or whatever. I do believe you do, but I do believe that you have the control to change that. So what about the people, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands, scary actually, that have not necessarily spiritually awoken, so they then become assets of the Russian government, I would imagine. So what would the plan be? I can't imagine there's only one plan. There must be quite a few plans, or quite a few soldiers that are activated right now.
Mm-hmm. So, and as I mentioned before, if you think about the metaverse that is coming, the Antichrist is coming on this earth, it's the image. So they will definitely be using technology to carry out, because, you're worshiping the image, the name, that will be coming on board. So this metaverse is the next generation's reality. Our children, our grandchildren, metaverse will be everything for them. So now Russia has the trump card with all of these. They have their beehive built. They have all these codes they know how various avatars will react. They sold them to other countries, right? They have, they know how to break it down, if you will.
It's their blueprint. Yep. They've got the blueprint. Oh my gosh. So
if you are the architect,
makes them a superpower, right?
Yep, exactly. And it's specifically for this next generation, the metaverse that's coming. And that's why I said I was recommending watching the movie, The Surrogates. It shows it very well how it is done. Very well.
Surrogates.
Yep. It was in 2009. Bruce Willis is in it. Yeah, when you watch that, you will understand, how it is.
Wow.
Pretty sad.
Wow. And this is, yeah. Sorry?
So they're also in bed. Russia is also in bed, will be getting in bed with China. Back about 20 years ago or so, it was, 30 years ago, when I was a child, 40 years ago, it was popular for people to learn English. And for the last 40 years, U.S. has been on the scene. right, as the powerhouse. And then about 20 years ago, it was trendy for the wealthy Russians to have Chinese tutors for their children, for the Russians to learn Chinese language and Chinese culture. Trump's granddaughter also has a Chinese tutor, Chinese nanny. So Trump also knows that China is going to be coming up on the scene, and he's keeping his foot in the door also, his family in the door, by letting the China, they're going to be together basically, and
So
that's
this
what
is
I've seen
already,
also
already they're
in
married.
play. Right.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is like, oh my goodness. So already these guys have been planning this since 20 years ago. I mean, we just look at the infiltration of China into Africa. I mean, it's no, but they don't really care. Yeah. They just do it. They just really don't care. My point is that, so these guys have known about this for a long time, and obviously China being in bed with Russia, so they've already, as you say, started having Chinese nannies, Chinese tutoring,
Because they
Chinese.
know, right. So Russia has the one trump card with all of these avatars and technology, other things, but so does China, right? They're all going to be coming together, and that's Bible talks about the end times with the army coming from the north. You got those two coming from the north. Another thing was that I've heard from a friend who went to visit there about 20 years ago. Russia would do these parades. They would be like Woodstock's parties, huge parties on the streets, and for young people, young teens, older teens, young adults. They throw the booze at them, the partying, the musical, and if you wanted to get married right there on the spot, they would have little priests marrying them right there on the spot. Forget about the family, forget about dating and all. If you want to get married, you want to go.
How old are we talking? How these people that were being able to be married right on the spot? When are we talking? What year about? How long ago was?
2000s, early 2000s.
Okay, so then they were having these street parties where kids were going, teenagers, and the authorities were right there saying, if you want to get married, you can get married now. So they obviously taken some alcohol and maybe some drugs and whatever. So feeling very frisky with life and deciding this is the right thing to do. Now, what would be the purpose of that?
More soldiers, more babies in their arsenal, because they're going to be having babies, and because they're so young, not a lot of them are going to be keeping their babies. And Fiona's stories or other stories, what happens there? Fill them in, please. It's just sickening. It's so manipulative. They're just building out their army.
It's insane. But what about Zelensky? I mean, Zelensky to me is a complete New World Order puppet. So when we're looking at Zelensky in this equation, where does he stand from where you're standing?
He's like I want to call him prophetic puppet. One of my Ukrainian aunts, she posted a video because he was an actor, right? And he did this comedy act. And in there, he talks about, well, how we all eat our children. Pretty soon, Ukraine is not going to be there because we wouldn't eaten up all our children. All of our people, essentially. And the older ones are going to die off. So he's kind of saying, like, Ukraine is not going to be there anymore. Russia will. So I think he is under that same system, in bed, if you will. It's not about the Ukraine, definitely not about the Ukrainian people. It's about what they're bringing forth. And that's this new generation metaverse society that only a few control with their clear thinking.
Speaking about that metaverse, I know Thea, who's in our back room, has been doing research, and we're going to be doing some stuff on this metaverse and what our kids... Guys, I haven't had the courage to watch the stuff yet, but I know Thea has. It is horrific what is going on in these game rooms with kids. I mean, what Theo is actually saying is that these kids are actually, I mean, they've obviously all got gamed up and what, but they're in this place and they're actually sleeping there. They're not even switching off to go to bed. So they're like in this virtual room, sleeping and hanging out. And let's not even talk about the rooms where they go to be groomed. There's a place, what we were saying, where they get groomed with animals, guys. I mean, we're talking bestiality here as well. It is insane, but we're going to be doing more about this later because it is shocking. And that's exactly what you're saying. The next step is the metaverse, and the kids, we just lose our humanity in the metaverse. And what would the purpose of that be at the end of the day? Why would they want us to lose our humanity? Because they want our souls, right? But what would they want to be doing with us then?
It's more, well, Bible talks about they will seek death and they will not find it. Death will run away from them. They want to be so desperate. They just want to die, but they can't. And once you get into the system, it's exactly that. They've created so many bodies for you, so many avatars, that your soul just keeps going and going. And it's really for the Antichrist, for Satan. You know, Satan doesn't have life, so the least that he can have is this metaverse.
This is what someone is asking you. So what happens to your soul once you're dead and it's, I guess, been taken? And this is why it's so important, where I think prayer and really going through the stuff like you're talking about, and like Jesse's been talking about as well. Basically, what do you call it? Shunning them out, no longer giving permission. You actually have to do a lot of spiritual work and a lot of prayer to reclaim all those parts of yours. They are there. Your soul can never, ever be destroyed. It's impossible. But I do believe, yes, it can be stolen and held hostage from you, or broken or fragmented. But through prayer, through alignment with God and God's will and the higher will and your higher purpose, I have no doubt that you'll bring yourself fully back into your beingness again. There's no doubt in my mind about that. So that doesn't even worry me. All you got to know is it's reclaiming your power, really, isn't it? It's taking back your power, and it's really just understanding you are this amazing and being that even despite all of that, they could not destroy you. That is such a liberating thing, that is such an empowering thing in my world, that you all of you overcomers, and I speak to a lot more than what I interview. There's the sense of strength, this inner strength. There's a sense of light that shines. It's like you guys are the healers of the world. Really, you guys that have come through this are the healers of the world. And it's a blessing to work with you already.
I have to add one more thing, and this can be another show, how I did it with Jesus. But I think the difference between survivors and the overcomers, you have to understand that it's a two-way street. If they can get to you, you can get back to them. Exactly. You go back into those places with Jesus, you explode those labs, you take them apart, you send Jesus' glory, his fire, his living water, whatever, you undo it. When you undo that, the other souls that were part of it, you set them free also. At the very least, their souls, that those humans who are attached to those souls, are their little missions, if you will. When they are freed, after I go in and explode that lab, they have this clarity, this moment of clarity, where they start coming back like, oh, the system is breaking down basically, but you have the authority to go back and undo it. And you have to do it. It's your job. Exactly. It's your duty.
Exactly. And I really think that that's why Jesus came down, to the earth, because, and it's true what they say, it came to set the captives free, because Jesus, I think, is really working overtime, and he's especially come for survivors and overcomers that have been through this stuff. Really, I think that is so incredible, because Jesus is the healer. Jesus is the ultimate healer. And remember, Jesus always understood two things. A, if you believe, you are able to be healed. And B, he never ever saw you in your illness. He only ever saw you in God's full glory. And that is the key to healing. I've been a healer for many years. I've healed myself from all sorts of dodgy things. So, and I know the body is designed to heal itself, but you can only do it when you are in full alignment with God and God's will for you. Wow, it's been a little bit longer than we anticipated, so I hope
Too
you're
long.
okay.
Sorry.
No. I hope you're okay. I've certainly, I mean, I can carry on forever and ever. This is a fascinating conversation. So I want to just say to you,
We are
thank you.
frozen again. Sorry,
Oh my
guys.
gosh. Is it me again? It's my internet, yeah. On my back?
It just, yeah, you're back. But yeah,
Okay.
we've taken our time. Another show.
Yeah,
There's more.
absolutely. Yeah, there is so much. There's really so much. And I'm really, really interested to find out more about also stuff and just exposing a lot of what's going on. So thank you, Lira, so much
My pleasure.
for sharing your story. And I really, really have enjoyed hearing from you. Is there anything you would like to say just in closing for our viewers?
There's many things, but it was John. I was praying before getting on here, waiting on the Lord what message he had for me. It was John the Baptist who appeared to me, and he, long story, but he emphasized the verse that he wrote, which was, Jesus, God died for you. God gave his son, died for you. If you believe in him, like you said, you will have everlasting life. So what he was emphasizing to me, if us, the parents, if we live our lives showing our children that we believe in the Lord, that he can see us through any situation, if we walk it out, they see it, they start implementing it in their life, and they don't die. It's our actions, it's our mindset. Right? Yeah. We have to take the responsibility. We have to put aside our social media, our parties, whatever we do, and take the time with the Lord so our children can see it, because that's where the hope comes from. Believe, that's where their freedom comes from.
Absolutely.
Take the time to be in oneness with the Lord and the Holy Spirit. Please.
Absolutely. You have to. You absolutely have to. Thank you, and God bless you, because really, I've really enjoyed chatting with you. Look forward to having you back. So guys, watch the space. We will let you know when Lira will be back and following up, and we'll be talking about her healing journey with her daughter as well, because her daughter was also taken in, if you will. And on
US soil, different type of program.
I can imagine, what you just said earlier on was, that's forgiveness on a whole nother level. When you got to forgive not just your perpetrator, but the one that's done, the ones who've done that to your child. I mean, you got to be big for that. And I mean, I want to say to everyone here, these amazing overcomers are teaching us some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful lessons. Just through, if you guys have been through what you've been through, and you can come out and be okay and have forgiveness for people who've done that amount of abuse, you are golden, and we want to learn from you. Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you to all our beautiful viewers. Thank you so much for watching and supporting, and just always being here. It's so fun. It's Friday evening, and I'm having a date with you guys.
One crazy woman.
Single Africa. We have load shedding. I need candles.
Man.
I must say, that's one thing about load shedding. You learn how to get the romance back in your life. That's for sure. Wonderful. Take good care, everybody. Thank you for all the comments. Really appreciate you. Take good care. God bless you all. We'll see you soon. Cherry buys. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa, which I now definitely will call your favorite YouTube channel, where we share inconvenient truths and annoy a lot of people in the process. But we also like give a lot of information in the process as well. So welcome everybody. It's beautiful Monday. It is Monday today. Good grief, yes it is. And I had Bryce earlier on, and I am so happy to welcome with me today for the first time on Aquarius Rising Africa, Asia Raine. How are you, Asia? And welcome to Aquarius Rising.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. It feels really great to be able to speak with you and maybe and hopefully add more information and truths to really kind of be part of the audience that appeals, like that you appeal to and that you serve. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
You're so welcome. And oh yes, Renee. Hi, Renee. She also did a show with us a couple of months back, in fact, already. Also, she's from the Mormon Church, not having the similar experiences to you, thankfully, but nonetheless had some interesting experiences there. But I'm really happy to be talking to you because, since we started this platform, which is now in September, it will be 3 years. I cannot actually believe. And with Jesse Zabota initially as our guest, and then from there we had a lot of what we call overcomers, people that have been in the system and that really have come out and are now telling the tale. And one thing that has come out a lot is the Mormon Church, and their shenanigans. Now, I'm sorry, you don't even have to take me to the Mormon Church. You don't even have to take me within a mile of the Mormon Church, and I want to run. And I don't know why. I've never known why, but it makes a lot of sense as to what you're saying. So I would love for you maybe just to go back to the beginning. Introduce yourself to our audience, because I've no doubt that we're going to be chatting with you more as well. What happened? How did this begin for you? Yeah, what the heck happened here?
I have to say that I was born into the cult. I was born into the cult that is called the Mormon Church. It fits a lot of the definitions of what a cult is. Did not know that that's what it was, of course, because I'm in it. But I was also born into a family that was involved in the darker side of the Mormon Church, which was the blood cult brotherhood side of the Mormon Church that is actively and currently running the Mormon Church as well.
I want to just ask you, you say the side of the Mormon Church, like, the blood brotherhood, I think you said. So are you saying that the Mormon Church actually has, well, I think every church has a kind of like a cover life, because if we're just going back to a lot of the stories, especially we're hearing from the Catholic Church, a lot of the massive rituals and sacrifices and things actually take place either in the church itself or beneath the floorboard, so to speak. So are you saying that there is a side of the Mormon Church that is really genuinely good, that there are people and pastors that have no idea that this is going on, but that is really just a front? Or are they actively fronting? Are they actually actively fronting for the nefarious activities? Are they blissfully unaware or actively fronting?
That is such a great question, but it's also very nuanced because it is both. I'm going to use myself as an example. So I was born into it, and from infancy was subjected to the conditioning that would bring a human, a person, into the processes of splitting off, dissociating, being able to be controlled and conditioned and things like that. And then I was, along with other people, but I was tracked, I was studied, that kind of thing, to basically decide where I might be of most benefit to the cult, what kind of studies I would benefit them by who I am as a person, that kind of thing. So with that, there was also the conditioning was also repressed. So the trauma brain that is activated, and the torture and the rapes and things like that that are designed to create multiple personalities are being tracked and monitored by the handlers. But me as the person and having the front personality, I'm unaware of it. So I don't know. So I was blissfully unaware. I was definitely a member. I was dedicated to the religion. I was on track for being a lifetime member. I married in the temple. I had children that I taught and raised in the religion, and I was actively teaching. I was actively active. I was participating. So all of that was happening, and yet I was also being accessed and dissociated and being taken to ceremonies, being able to be used by and tracked by handlers, and in ways that, I would be of benefit to them, whatever they deemed was of benefit, and how I would contribute to that. So the accessing happened throughout my life until I actually ended it. And the only way that I was able to end it is because I then became aware of it through my own memory recovery, and then recognized that what I was remembering wasn't just a symbolic thing I was trying to show myself why I was depressed, but they were actual lifetime experiences that all added up to this other reality that was happening not only in my family, but within the church system that I was a part of, and that I was actually vehemently loyal to. And so what I'm going to say is, yeah, there are members that are not even a part of or accessed to the SRA, to the satanic ritual abuse or the satanic ritual ceremonies. They are just members, and that it's a great cover because there's nothing for them to access or even refer to or even be triggered by. So they may be listening to me right now and have no orientation towards what I'm saying, which helps with the cover. And they like what the church is offering, what in whatever ways loyal members that have no association with any kind of occult experience are living and being the Mormon that they are from a place that is right for them. There are also those like me who feel that that's what they're doing, but are also acting from a front altar, and then have all these other parts. Multiple personalities, multiple things that can be accessed, are triggered, and here, like, are being conditioned by the church itself. And then there are those that are consciously aware of what they're doing. They have a front, or they have an appearance of a good member, but they are consciously participating, taking people to ceremony, actually activating and accessing their victims, and doing more conditioning, and supporting the entire system through those means. And so it's kind of like this amalgamation of all of it. And you wouldn't necessarily know right off the cuff if somebody was or wasn't, because the nuances, unless you know what you're looking for, and unless you learn how to trust yourself and what your energetics are telling you, you're not going to really pick up on it. You're going to actually be confused, and your own cognitive dissonance about this even being possible is going to kick in. And the other thing that happens is, we as good humans, good humans are going to project good human traits onto other people. And so that's even hard to kind of wrap your head around, these kind of very ancient, old human sacrificial experiences, ceremonies, belief and worship of demons, of Satan, of Lucifer, of other demigods, of really utilizing and using humans and harvesting their energy and their body and their blood. There's a really weird thing that you're just like, that just can't be. And so that also actually kind of keeps the cult, the brotherhood, safe and secret. because they bank on and expect people that don't have those experiences, that don't have those moral, that actually have a moral code, that aren't coming from that kind of belief system. They're banking on that actually motivating, driving their viewpoint, and they actually exploit that. So a lot of the marketing, a lot of the verbiage, a lot of the things that you're hearing, even that come at you in the church or even in society, if it's trying to manipulate you, it's also they're manipulating those good sides of you, and it's doing it so that it keeps them safe, secret, and hidden, and then you just keep going on with your life.
Wow. The perfect cover. Really, it's like, yeah, it seemed, because I remember, with Jessie doing all her decodes, and there's one thing, wow, I have to say about Jessie. She understands how the system works, second to none.
Mhm.
And I was trying to think, but there were 5 pillars
Mhm.
of the Illuminati, basically, and I don't remember the 5th one now, but it was the Mormons, the Masons, the Catholics, the Satanists, and I can't remember what the 5th one is.
She
So if
called them the
anyone,
Illuminati. So
yes,
she did.
that's 4 though. That's 4, and I can't remember what the 5th pillar was. The Masons, the Mormons, the Catholics, the Satanists, and
The
if
Illuminati.
anyone can remember the 5th one,
I
I'd
think I
appreciate
wrote that down, and that's what so
Yeah.
if we include the Illuminati as one of the pillars, it would be Illuminati, Mormons, Masons, Catholics, and Satanists.
I think what you were saying, the Illuminati consists of
of those 5.
those,
Oh,
yes, of the 5. So there's another
Mhm.
5th one
Mhm.
that's missing. So I
I'll
can't
look
remember
that
that
up.
now. Anyway, but I just
Remember
wanted to
that.
mention that because from what you're explaining as well,
Mhm.
it is so well rigged and
Mhm.
so slick. And Kabbalah, that's right, Kabbalah. Thank
Cabal.
you, Lisa.
There you go.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the
Now you
Kabbalah,
remember.
yeah, the Kabbalah and the Satanists, the Catholics, the Mormons, and the Masons. So
Mhm.
it's very, very interesting that the Mormons actually play such a big role. But what I'd like to hear from you, if
Mhm.
obviously anything that you don't want to answer, you're welcome not to.
Okay.
But I would just maybe explain to us how it began for you. I know that you were literally also your parents were in, and I do believe from our off-air conversations that this was
Mhm.
really your dad. And
My dad was consciously involved with it, yes, and so were his parents. I don't have a lot of active memory, or didn't recover a lot of memories with my mom, although she was present and active. There is, she does have some things behind her that do drive this. But the way my experience was, I'm the oldest child of 2 oldest children, and that does factor in uh, on where it was that I was placed. And so at 5 years old, I was taken up to the church administration building. I had been selected through a process or through a screening, through Romper Room, through that, there was that national syndicate show, and that was actually utilized, I know for sure, in Salt Lake City, because that's where I was. I believe it was also used in other cities, but I can't speak to that. I just know that those recordings were a good way for those who are going to be choosing children and observing children in play, how well they take direction. Have they been conditioned enough since infancy to be chosen, to be in different areas? That was something that all factored in for me. And so then I was that screening of those 2 weeks on set, at just being part of that program, of that show. It would come on daily, and little kids would watch it and that kind of thing. And so I was excited to be part of it. I was excited that I was going to be part of it, and I got to meet Miss Julie and see the magic mirror and those kinds of things. And in reality, that was a screening. So then, when whatever it was that I fit, my personality, the way I interacted, the way I led, the way I didn't lead, all of those things are being evaluated. All the children are being watched and evaluated because children show up as themselves. And so it's easy to see and predict personality tendencies when a child is actually, still performing and still being who they are, and yet knowing that there is also conditioning that has happened to that child, like it did to me before even that screening happened. So then I was selected by Tom Monson, and he was part of the church leadership. And so then I was taken to the church administration building for whenever they called me in. And so it would, whether it was for ceremony, whether it was for gifting, whether it was for being trafficked somewhere else, whatever their agenda was, I would be one of the children that would be called in and utilized for whatever they wanted, deemed necessary at that time. And I was not the only child. There was always is kind of, there were times that I was in ceremony alone as the only child, or there were one-on-one tortures, rapes, ceremonies, conjurings, that kind of thing. But most of the time, there were other children and there were other perpetrators there. So it was more, I experienced a lot of group ceremony interactions. And
was this all within the church? So are we talking within the church? What?
So yes. So my experience, if it was, so I had experience with both my family, meaning it was just family organized, family planned, strategically done to keep conditioning the children, my cousins, my sister, my brothers, that kind of thing. And then there were other times that these ceremonies would happen either in the Mormon temples or underground. There were tunnels, and there's rooms off of the tunnels that ceremonies would happen, and deals would be made, signings would be their signatures, that kind of thing, blood oaths. Or there would be things not only in the temple, but on temple, like I'm saying, temple grounds underneath that, other church-owned properties, private properties. So in private homes, on private land outside, there were trades that happened. I crossed borders, and so it happened in a number of places, but there were a lot of times that it was happening within church-owned properties.
And this from when you were 5 years old?
Well, actually 3. It was early on. When it got very formal was when I was 5. But the conditioning began at infancy. The trainings, the ceremonies began as a baby. And there are things that Mormons experience, or ceremonies that they do just even, like in church, where in front of the congregation, a child would be blessed. I was blessed in a satanic blood cult way before I was blessed in.
Why? Because you obviously are bloodline then. You must have some kind of bloodlines or hierarchy kid, as I know them.
Yeah. For me, the experiences were blood cult ritual, meaning blood cult baby blessing, and then regular church in front of the congregation, like black magic, white magic blessing. I was baptized in blood and in a blood cult before I was baptized, in the church. There were other ceremonies that happened that, there was a marriage ceremony where you're married off to Lucifer. So there's the marriage ceremonies and giving yourself over and dedicating yourself that way when I was younger. And so then you're living a life that is dedicated and owned by that entity, that being, or those who are in proxy for that entity and that being, that darkness. And then when I was married, before I got married, there were also approvals that had to be made by the general authority that was over me and the general authority that was over my ex-husband's family, my fiance's family at the time. And the families brought us together. So the families arranged the marriage. And that's done, and that was done in our case, and it's done in other marriages too, so that both victims, both me and my husband, would be in our own kind of repressed memory experiences. So the forward parts of ourselves were married, but it was easy to access the children as we had them, or access the entire family if needed, because then we were already conditioned, even though we were walking around as adults, we were already conditioned to turn over our authority to them, or to step into a part, or whatever it was that we needed. So there were a lot of times that my children were accessed, and I was not aware. I wasn't, in that awareness, because I'd already been conditioned to not see that, or to not suspect the person that they were with, or to willingly give over the, like one of the kids, hey, can they come stay the night? Hey, I'm going to take them to a basketball game. We're just going to do a one-on-one. Grandpa wants to get to know, or wants to, treat so-and-so, or give them a birthday celebration, and the orientation is like, that's really cool. How great. They're creating this grandparent grandchild relationship, and it's more conditioning for the child. Yeah, they might show up to the basketball game, but then midway through, grandpa's giving a soda, or a piece of gum or something to the grandchild, and now it's drugged, and he's in this altered state and acting whatever, and doesn't look weird to have an adult kind of like walking a child, you've got to take him to the bathroom or whatever, and then going down into, like the doors that they knew to access, get in the car, whatever it was they needed to do to take them to ceremony. And then once they come home, you have to wake them up in the car, and it's like, wow, that was a long game, wasn't it? Implant kind of a scenario for the child to wake up into. That happens a lot, and in fact, there is a ceremony that did happen.
And please hold on to that thought, because there's a lot between the kids and you, because as a child, I mean, because what I'm understanding here is that your mum was probably not very active. She was more kind of like docile and just kind of, and what do you call it, enabler.
Controlled.
So she would have pretty much been programmed to not ask questions, think everything is normal, brush any suspicions aside, or whatever the case might be, like kind of gloss things over. So I'm hearing from what you're saying with your own kids, obviously decades down the line, that was a similar scenario. So both you and the father of your kids were obviously both products of the Mormon Church who were MK Ultra'd. And both of you had then, well, there was an arranged marriage for you, of which they then had authority over your children. Was your husband the enabler, or was he the one that was consciously involved,
No.
passing your kids on then? Okay,
No,
so neither of you.
Both of us were matched as victims, easily controlled victims, and the experiences were, I would say, both of us had been effectively programmed that we wouldn't necessarily pull up memories spontaneously or even trigger each other. So the conditioning, I would say, was really deep. I know my conditioning was really deep. So to kind of rewind and go back, like I was being physically and consciously conditioned by my dad. It was being supported, whether consciously or unconsciously, by my mom. Like I said, I do not have a lot of memories of her masterminding anything. However, there were a lot of I shared experiences with the high level church leadership, and ceremonies, and tortures and murders and things like that in that area, as well as with my dad personally, and then also his family as well. And then what that did is created a scenario that they knew, and he was programming, and whatever the prescription of who they wanted me to be, what kind of person they were designing me to be, to have as the front altars versus the other programmed altars that could be pulled up, very classic MK Ultra training kind of thing, would be utilized in different ways, could be triggered outside of me. And I would dissociate and move into those different parts, not really knowing that. So as a child, yes, there was a lot that I got introduced to at the age of 5. It wasn't a number of places. And so I have experience, really very focused experience from 5 to about 14. Maybe even, maybe 15 even, with the high level church leadership. And then we would move. We were put on assignment. My dad was put on assignment, and we moved. And then there was more that was happening we moved to Texas. So there was something going on in Texas that he was in charge of. I think it was probably, he was tasked to be part of another area experience for that particular area that we were in. So
what was your dad's position within the cult? Are you aware of that? Because obviously you seem to have been quite high level.
I'm not
shouting odds.
Yeah, I'm not. I can't really tell you what the level was. I have the impression, it seems very apparent to me, that the goal and his desire was to move up within the ranks, and so I know that we did move around because of that. His profession was fascinating. His profession, he desired, as I was told, and this may or may not be the real scenario, because you're always told the biggest thing that this cult does, like worldwide, is their biggest things is to either give false information, disinformation, or no information. So we need to, as society, we need to have a very healthy sense of maybe critical thinking, but then also intuitive thinking. Like I would say anymore, the most important thing that we could do, because especially in the Mormon Church, people are taught to turn over their personal authority, their personal sovereignty. I don't even know if we even get trained into sovereignty yet. So just giving your own voice and trusting yourself some real weight is not really taught or enforced or encouraged. And so I have had to go through a process of really unlearning and deprogramming so much. And now what I like to tell people is, like, when something is presented to you, instead of defaulting into, well, I don't know, but they do, so they must be the authority, which was really heavily programmed into me, is to default into, this is my experience, this is how I'm receiving this, and I'm going to trust myself. Which what that does is it gives the divine, it gives wisdom, it gives room for something to actually be worked with, instead of vacillating back and forth. Well, I don't know, I guess I'm just going to try this. I don't know, I'm going to look for something outside of myself.
But that is such heavy programming to deprogram, though.
It's
because
a lot.
we know just through, we started doing last week we've started decoding the gateway experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a fascinating topic, that for me, because what they've really done is they've taken the Bob Monroe's work, and they've taken that, the CIA took that, and they've pretty much used the information he gained on observing, let's say, how meditators, how their energy worked in the brain hemispheres came together, etc., etc. And what they did was they've used that, and they've, obviously we know that the dark forces can't create, they emulate, and they've expanded on that, and they've absolutely used it for the basis, the gateway of MK Ultra, right?
Mhm.
So it's and this for me, the more I see these things, the more it makes me realize we really have to, as you say, reverse everything that we've been taught. And especially victims such as yourself, who had these horrific monsters doing the most unimaginable things to children and each other and whatever. I can imagine that those imprints must be so deeply etched in a child's mind, you know.
Mhm.
Part of what they do is they make kids sacrifice other kids, right?
Yes.
Now, how? I mean, if you think about a child, pure innocent, all a child does is want to hug the bunny and kiss the puppy and
Mhm.
love the baby, It's a child's natural way to love and care and to want to tend and nurture.
Mhm. Mhm.
So they've turned that child around completely. I
Mhm.
mean, in the most obscene ways.
Mhm.
So I think it must be such a difficult turning point right?
To
Where,
be
where,
Yeah. No, go ahead, finish your sentence. Yeah.
yeah, just to get to turn that, to alchemize that. That's the word I use, to
Mhm.
alchemize that. It's like, that it's darkest before the dawn, the dark
Mhm.
night, to go back to those places and have these memories
Mhm.
replay themselves. How do you deal with that now when you're looking at what you've been through,
Mhm.
the betrayal? Because when you realize, but let me just ask you this before I ask you that. Sorry, I know my mind I've got a million
I've got all the
questions.
questions.
Uh, your father, what type? Because very often then, in these types of scenarios, they would make the mother the secondary parent. So
Mhm.
she would be there as backup.
Mhm.
Did they make your father your primary caregiver?
I would say I interpreted what you're saying there. I'm going to interpret that as saying my loyalty was to my father. And that loyalty, I would say, would line up with primary caregiver. Although my mom was a stay-at-home mom, which would be primary caregiving in the social acceptance stance, my internal socialization of who I trusted, who I resonated with, who I loved, who I wanted to be like would have been my dad. My dad was my rescuer. They actually did create situations
Oh,
where I would
trauma
be he would
bonding.
exactly. So the trauma bond would be systematically created. He would take me to the ceremony, right? And the switch
Explain,
would be
explain to us. Use an example for myself and the viewers of, let's say, a ceremony, as you're saying that he took you to. Talk us through that. How did that play out?
it could play out in a number of different ways. Let me think about this because it happens always. There's a drug. Always the child is put into an altered state. So the disorientation is happening on a number of different levels. So um, you're taking in information, but you're processing it, and yet you can feel your body like getting woozy, or you do go into unconsciousness or something like that. So it's a little difficult to track. However, like I would be taken to
Who would administer the drug? Would
it.
that be
So
your dad?
it sometimes if it needed to be, if I was going to be showing up to like, there was a time that he got a phone call. They were in the process of punishing and eliminating an individual that was trying to get away, I just remember he got a phone call, and basically the way this went down is like, this is happening. She's going to be eliminated. If you want to bring your daughter so that you can, like use this as an opportunity to drive in conditioning even more, get over here kind of idea. So then he hangs up the phone, says he needs to go over to his brother's house to help him fix the lawnmower. asks me if I want to go. As we go, he hands me, like we're getting ready and whatever, he hands me a drink. Hey, do you want to have a stop and get a soda? We didn't even stop. It was just like, here's a drink, but it was drugged. And we don't go to my uncle's house. We go to this ceremony. And so I'm kind of like, and I'm not even aware that that's where we're headed. I don't even know what's going on. So that would be a kind of an instant thing. But we show up to this, and I'm saying ceremony because the ceremony was, they were killing this woman anyway. And so if you want to bring your child so that she can see, and you have more demonstration as to, if you tell this what's happened, this is what happens, here's an opportunity. So that's kind of an impromptu one. There were others that were planned where it's like, bring her to this location at this time. And maybe I got a drug in the car, a sandwich, a piece of candy, something like that. Or I would be taken church administration building. They'd put me on the elevator. I'd go upstairs and somebody'd hand me a chocolate. So it may be them, but you're always getting something at the beginning to alter the state, to start opening up and shifting the awareness of the child, or dampening the awareness of the child, so that what happens next, you're typically going along with, or you're completely losing consciousness, and then you wake up into the situation. You wake up into the screams.
Would your father be present during
Sometimes.
These rituals or ceremonies, or would he take you there and rescue you afterwards?
Both. And so there were ceremonies where he showed up later. I'm like kind of coming off of the craziness of what had just happened, and I see him. That's the familiar face, and all I can do is just trauma bond and be so grateful he's there, taking me away from it. No part of my brain is actually going, wait a second, how did you know to get me here? Like, and then why aren't you doing something about this? How come this isn't alarming to you? So you're not in the presence of mind to even ask those questions. You're just eager to get away. They also have full-on scenarios set up where trauma is like the girls in this, the one I'm thinking of, it was all girls. The girls are brought in, their dads are next to them, and then things start, like the setup is, the setup would be the bad men are going to come in their robes and whatever, and they're telling us that we need to be obedient, or they're going to hurt our fathers, which is alarming to hear, and cut, kill, whatever, because there's something that they've already done that to in front of us, whether it be an animal or another human, another body. And then the bad guys, in their robes or whatever, go and grab our dads, and the dads are like, no, they're in their own pretending and wrestling them out of the room. And now,
you're kidding me? They literally go to those extremes to pretend that your fathers are being manhandled.
Yes, and the fathers are a part of it. When you say go to that extreme, I'm smiling to myself, because I was definitely of the generation where they would create entire movie sets, theater sets, stage creations, like, art. Like they would create entire locations to look as if you were somewhere else. Like the extent to which some of the ceremonies I was a part of were so good, I really thought I was like in Egypt, or I really thought that I was in another location. And so I'm kind of smiling to myself, because what I'm describing is nothing. Yeah, the dads are participating. They're manhandled out of the room. Now they're putting on their own black robes, and they're coming in, now these other guys, now we're associating bad men, black robes, in come our dads in black robes. We don't know that because we can't see their faces. We're drugged. We're terrified. And then the next thing is a whole scenario of, who are you loyal to? What's going to happen? This is going to, you're going to be hurt. And then in this case, there's this very real experience with blood, with joining through blood, that kind of thing. And then the fathers in this case rape the daughters. And then we see the faces revealed. So now we are experiencing pain with this association. They could hurt you. And it's really that's another compartmentalization of.
Can I just, so what you're saying, the fathers then rape the daughters that
Yes.
still with their masks or their, and then afterwards they reveal themselves to the daughters.
Yes, as the rescuers. So you're
Oh,
not
not
even,
as the rapist, not as the rapist.
even though they're in the same garb. You're not,
Wow.
the conditioning and the trauma and the way that they know the drug
Yeah.
that's been administered or re-administered, because were times when I was in ceremony, I was then given another injection or another pill or another drink or whatever, which could have been a whole different drug to create a whole different internal scenario, whether it's more tension or more euphoria or whatever. So the disorientation is going the way they're designing. Plus you have all of the hormonal responses going on, and you've got the trauma brain kicking on, which is recording and storing everything, so that when you actually finish with all of this, that part of your brain shuts down. You're not accessing it because we're not walking around in full-on trauma brain all of the time. And so then those memories get repressed. And the other thing they always do that is part of every ceremony, there's going to be some kind of a sexual violation, because that kind of violation drives the programming deeper. Typically it's going to be like the anal raping and that kind of thing, whether it's with a penis or an object, is also there to help split off the brainstem, the bottom part of your brainstem. Or a vaginal rape is going to be there, the pain, the full on, like, just being violated is also part of it. Then at some point through all of this, whether you fall asleep or or put to sleep, waking up into it, you're going to be given sugar. So you're going to be given a piece of candy also, because the sugar reacts with the brain as well. And the association with sugar, there's a lot of people that have very real addictions or disorders or whatever when it comes to sugar, because it does act like, like it has similar chemical reactions to your brain that cocaine does. And it puts you in a place that you are going to have this euphoria as that sugar, that chemical, is reacting from a place that does actually bury even more the trauma. And as a child, that is very, very appealing. You want that sugar.
Absolutely.
You want to feel good. And at the same time, if my dad is driving me home, or I'm waking up at home and you're just kind of coming out of it, there could be like other, things said like, wow, you fell asleep and I mean, you missed the whole thing. And you're kind of like, I missed the whole thing. What? And it's not ceremony. It's like, oh yeah, we went to grandma's place and went to go pet the horses or something, right? Something completely different that you're going to trust, or you want to be your reality. So you're still not accessing that part of the trauma brain that's now closed down. And they're also giving you an explanation as to why you're waking up, in the backseat of the car, or whatever it is. And as a child, you've got no other orientation or cognitive maturity to even think or do anything different. So, and it also, you've got these different parts and personalities that have been created by them. They are also working with a script and prescriptions of how to create multiple personalities, how to create a child or a vessel that would be receptive to MK Ultra training. The more valuable the child is to the group that they're working with, then the more apt they are to either work themselves up in the group, or to be paid more for that child and the use of that child. Or to be trafficked, or whatever the purpose is there. So, and they utilize different things. Like I was going to say, it was important to know my dad's profession was eventually as a hospital administrator, which meant he had access to all kinds of areas in a hospital. If you happen to have a controller or a handler that's a doctor, you're going to have all kinds of availabilities. They use, for monitoring ceremonies in children's, veterinarians, dentists are huge in this. Not huge as in they join in. I'm just saying they utilize their skills a lot, the conscious way of being able to create a lot of torture and terror in somebody's mouth like without the use of any kind of drugs. All the nerve endings up here, and the words that are said as you're tortured, or the words that are said as you're watching something happen. When you asked, and I wanted to revisit this, when you asked how do they get children to kill other children, there are times it's a very formal ceremony. You hear about this a lot. There's an altar, there's chanting, there's, whatever it is. There's things that are going on that feel very, very, very ceremonial. And yet there were times, and I was reviewing this last night actually, where, and I'm going to tell a little bit about this memory without getting, it's going to be graphic, but not too graphic. I'm going to try and really keep it mellow, if that's okay. Would you feel okay with that?
Absolutely. Just if there's a trigger warning for any of our viewers, let this be it.
Okay.
So yeah, we can't get away from the graphics in these stories, guys. So if there's any of you,
there's really not. I was 4. I want to say I was 4 years old, 4 or 5 years old. I was this was a preschool kind of setting, and there were a lot of children, so they were conditioning all of the children. And in this one moment, and this is just the section that I'm going to share, is there were 3 of us handcuffed together. So there was a little boy. I was handcuffed. It was my left hand. So I was handcuffed to him, and then there was another little boy handcuffed to him. So one in the middle, both hands are cuffed, right, to each of us. And we each had been given a name, and it was a biblical name. And so they were using, I think my name was Ruth, and then there was a Samuel, and there was I think the middle boy's name was Philip. That's what it was. And we had already gone through some kind of terrifying experience, and all of us were in a very heightened trauma state. And there were other children in the room. The same thing was happening to them, but I'm telling you what happened to us. There was there were 2 men that were, with our little 3-person group. And we all wanted to get out of there. Clearly, you would want to get out of there. And there were doors in the room. And in this scenario, there were things that led up to this, but basically the man was looking at the boy in the middle. That was Philip. And he's like, Philip, do you know how to get out? Like he was trying to encourage him, is like, how do you get out of here? And I don't know how to get out. And Samuel doesn't know how to get out. Right. So the fact that the man was focusing on the little boy in the middle made me think, and made the other boy think, that maybe he did know. Right. And so he's saying, I don't know how to get out. And the man was saying, are you sure? Which made us wonder. And so so we're being pitted against this kid, and the authority is causing us to really wonder if he knew what was going on. Eventually, through this interrogation and this torturing, the other little boy gets very aggravated. I'm scared to death. And he tells the other little boy, every time he says, I don't know, you need to hit him. So this little boy is like, I don't know. And the other one's hitting. And I'm like, yes, you do. All of a sudden now I'm in like, like, you've got to know which one is it, and the other man is like egging all this on. And so then he produces a knife. The man produces a knife. And it gets to the point where he hands the knife to the other little boy. And he's like, because they got the little boy in the middle to say, well, maybe, I think he was just searching for anything. Maybe I do know. Maybe let me think about it. Like, I think what he was trying to do is stall, right? So now the older man gives the other little boy a knife, and he says, every time he lies, stab him. And so that starts happening. And now he's crying in the middle. He's crying on the other side. I'm terrified. And I'm just like, just tell us how to get out. And we're kind of yelling and screaming at each other. All of this energy is heightening. This little boy in the middle is crying. I don't know. And then, his arms are going all over the place because he was telling me to hit him. And like, we're supposed to be hitting each other. And finally the man grabs the other little boy was I still focused on the, every time he says, I don't know, you need to stab him. And so he was still doing that a lot. And there was a lot. Now suddenly there's blood. And suddenly the man says, Philip, you're lying. All of this is wrong. Grabs the knife out of Samuel's hand, plunges it into his stomach and pulls it up. Right. So now this little boy is dead, and there is blood everywhere. And then he looks at me and he looks at the other little boy and he says, okay, so since he didn't know, one of you two does. And he goes, you're going to have to fight this out. What happened in my mind was like, oh, no way. I want nothing to do with this. I will not, I don't know how to get out of here, but I am not going to end up like this. So I took on a fighting stance, and I couldn't, you know, because I'm still, my hand is still like chained to this, but I'm ready. I square off. And the other little boy sees this. He actually has a knife and he's terrified because I'm, you know, like we start getting played off of each other. And the whole thing was horrible. And what the man did is as soon as he was seeing that we were going to have to take on this thing, but we were not supposed to be hurt, right? The sacrificial child had already been used and terrorized, and the purpose of what was going to happen did happen. So then he jumps in and says, well, maybe he was right, because he did point to the middle door, right? And so they open it up and there's, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just diffused the whole thing. And now it's like, what in the world just happened? And he's like, and so then the words after this were, you can't trust anybody, because who you would trust is going to always double cross us. The only people you can trust is us. I am the only one you can trust. And so we're actually going, okay, adults, we can trust adults. We're going to trust the strange men that we don't know because they got us out of here. And clearly the one we shouldn't have trusted or we didn't know, you know, like all of the chaos and all of the mayhem and all of the blood and all of the stuff. So when you get children in a place where, and believe me, this has already been demonstrated to me. Like this wasn't my first rodeo. My first go around was seeing this kind of stuff. There had been training for the last 4 years of being involved in or witnessing terror, that this unfortunately was something that they were observing on. How did she act? How is he reacting? How are we going to control these kids in the middle of this situation? Would she be useful in a situation where we need somebody to, you know, like carry out one of our orders? Is he going to be like, it was all evaluation, but it was also all terrorizing. There's more to this whole story. I'm just giving you this little section to say, I witnessed something. The child did not kill the other child. I didn't kill anybody. The adult did, but it all impacted us. So that later on in our worlds, when we are in other ceremonies and they're putting knives or whatever, like daggers in our hands, and we are part of, you know, like the action of killing something and someone innocent, we can relate. There's a relationship. There's some kind of like a neural pathway connection, especially when the words that are there come in and say, look what you did. And I can't trust myself. I can't trust anybody but the authority. And the authority is anybody but me, or anybody that knows more than I do. So it's a very, you know, that's like, this is something that's typical, and that does happen. Like that kind of mind control, that kind of mind conditioning is very much under and actively happening now. Current day, has been happening for a very long time. But this is what is running the Mormon Church. This is what is underneath the Mormon Church. And when you have enough victims that have had these experiences, that have front altars or don't want to see the man that's leading this church, or the man that is leading their congregation, or the man that's, you know, leading whatever, as the man they saw, you know, 2 weeks ago or last night in ceremony, then they won't. They want to see what's there, and they want to take in what they're being told, because they can't trust themselves. Somewhere in the back of their minds, they know they can't trust themselves because of all these heinous things.
This is completely, I mean, it sounds as from what we're hearing, stories of the Catholic Church. This is as bad. Would you say, I mean, do you remember any times in any of these rituals or places you've been to where you'd find the Mormons and the Catholics overlapping and hanging out together? And can you tell us maybe, I don't know how many, if you can drop names at all, or you talk about high level people in the church? Can you tell us a bit about that? And I know we're almost out of time, but
yeah, I was to say we're almost out of time on this one too. I do know I witnessed a number of times high level, you know, the leadership of the church, like the top 15. I've had experience with back in the time when I was those ages. I had experience with 10 of the 15, meaning I was with them in ceremony. They tortured or raped me. I was watching them kill something. They were doing something to me, that kind of thing. And that was back in the late 70s, early 80s kind of thing. So the ones that are still alive now that I have experience with, there are still, there's still a few. And there are others that I have seen, or others that are still, that are leaders of the church, that I know other victims that have had experience with them as well. As far as the Catholic Church, I have been in Catholic churches. I've been in the Cathedral of the Madeleine, which is the massive, like underneath. Like, you've got to remember, this is like in the tunnels, like, is how you access it, but it's even below what people would know as the basement. Like, these are lower levels that are only accessible through certain ways. It's not like you can just kind of wander into and find these things. Not to say that that's not possible. I mean, I guess you could always open the wrong door at the right time, kind of thing. However, there is a lot of, especially now with technology and the way they track and guard stuff. I always tell people that feel like they want to just run up and just kind of like slay the beast right now. I'm just like, they'll see you coming. This is like their playing field. They wrote the game book. Like, there's nothing that you can do that they're not going to see coming. They're more educated than you are. So to be able to see what's really happening and really make a difference, I tell people we need to starve the beast. Stop giving it your money. Stop giving it your attention. Stop giving it your mind. Really come back and find out what you're triggered by, how you're responding or reacting. Like, really get to know who you are and empower yourself, because that takes more away from, they're harvesting our life force energy. Own it, bring it back, like really do the hard work of looking at yourself. There was a time that I did have interaction with a pope and some cardinals, and that was in Salt Lake. And I've also had interactions with government officials in different states and in the state of Utah as well. People that are just high level, influential individuals. And there was, as I was older, I was utilized as what I call a mule. I would carry messages, but it was kind of this really archaic old way of doing things where messages were sent. Like, I remember this one time I was given a disc, had a symbol on it. I had to swallow it. And then I went to the location to drop it off. And I basically went into the bathroom and threw it up and washed it off and delivered it. Like, I knew nothing of what the message meant. I knew nothing of what the symbol was. I just knew that my direction was to take it and deliver it. And this was the means. And I'm sure that it happened. I only have one memory of that, but because of the ease of which I was able to actually do this, to, like swallow something and then throw it up, I know it happened often. And consciously, in my early college years, being bulimic was really easy for me. Having that body dysmorphia, that self-hatred coming through in those different ways, it was really easy for me to vomit. I didn't even need to put my fingers down my throat. I could just spontaneously do this. Like, and if, like, I just knew how, which is odd, but I just knew how. And that was, that kind of led me to the memory of being like that mule, that message carrier in that way. But that's still further down the line on this, the way that my memory recovery. Just to kind of answer that question, when I was 37, I got very, very depressed. 36, 37, got very depressed and was walking around dissociated a lot. Felt that, experienced that, saw how apathetic I was very alarmed by that. I felt depression at a very, very deep level. And my intention was to find out what was at the root of that. And that journey led me into finding those memories, recovering those memories through hypnotherapy. And as controversial as some people might think that is, it's not. It's actually getting your brain into that theta brainwave where you can actually access those places, those things that you need to, or that are ready to come forward. Because I believe, and I believe that we are always evolving, and our goal as humans, and as spirits and as souls is to be on the path of healing. So if your body wants to heal and it's holding trapped energy, it wants to get rid of that. If your mind is being tortured by all of these, incorrect or torturous memories and pathways that are being triggered all the time, and you're walking around, like with your chemically depressed because of all the hormones that are going through you, or always on this low level anxiety so you can't digest your food or whatever, like your body is not wanting to stay in that state. We want to heal. We want to release this stuff, and we don't know how, because we're so used to offloading our own responsibility onto the authorities. Is that going to be the doctor? Is that going to be your next teacher? Is that God or your version of God? Like, what is it? Instead of bringing it here and saying, what am I doing? What am I telling myself? How can I assist me? But it does take some work, but we have the answers. That's my point. We have the answers. They're here. We're carrying it all with us.
In your heart, in your
even
soul.
It's really cool.
I fully agree with you. Wow, there's so much more that I'd love to tap into with you as well. Because I think I'd love to, maybe when we chat again the next time, go more into the retrieving of your memories and things as well. Because I was just speaking to one of my friends today, who also works with a hypnotist who works, and funny, in his journey to India, also was working with a woman who had, through the hypnosis, basically discovered all of these things. And I just said, I think this is what the future healers are going to be working with a lot. So is really people coming out of the satanic ritual abuse and these horrific pedophile homes. And so we all, honestly, guys, and I say this so much, it's not just up to the healers and the doctors or whatever. I wouldn't even go, seriously, I wouldn't go near a psychologist or a psychiatrist if I had any experience in the system, because invariably there's going to be some connection there. I would honestly find the person on a spiritual level, whatever your denomination is, that can help you and walk you back to your heart. That is going to, or your soul, right? We can go into the semantics of that, but really just walk you back to that place where you remember love. Because the only thing, and I know this from my experience for more than 20 years of being a healer as well, the only thing that works with people is love. You have to remind them about love, whether it's love from God, whether it's love from their parents, whether it's a minute of love they felt in their entire life. If they can just remember that, that starts then creating that momentum that takes us back to that place of love. And when you feel that love, that's when your healing begins. And that's when it's like all this other stuff has a way of melting away. It just melts away. Honestly, God has an amazing way of just reminding us of truth when we open ourselves up to receiving truth. We always think the truth is going to destroy us. It's not. The truth sets us free in the most beautiful way, And I'm actually liking, someone's commented about Martha Beck. And I love that you mentioned Martha Beck was in South Africa a number of years ago. I actually hosted one of her talks.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is a number of years ago. What was the book? And I was trying to think of the book. She had an autistic son or a child.
Raising Adam.
Raising Adam.
It was a great book. I loved that book.
Yes.
And then her next book was Leaving the Saints. And
yes,
she
this
talked
is the
about,
one that.
Yeah.
This is the one. I'm just going to add this. Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. And Grandpa was a high-level Satanist of top position in MC called Leaving the Saints. Yeah.
Right,
So,
right.
wow.
That if you find her description of what was happening there was in a room that I actually had a memory of as well. So in a way, she validated me, and I feel like I'm going to come forward and validate her in that. It's like this Egyptian room, and I know it to be like, well, I want to say on the BYU campus somewhere, and their campus is more than just the campus proper, but there is an Egyptian room. That room is it's fascinating because my memory in that one was being put in a sarcophagus, and they put, dumping a bunch of bugs on me, sealing me in this coffin kind of thing, terrifying. Like, and there were other things that were happening as well, but just utilizing whether they were, authentic artifacts or not, didn't matter. The point was I thought that's what I was present in. So reading her moment of memory in that, I'm going to validate it, and it's funny because and I want that we could really go into this, and I'm just going to really drop a quick snippet. The argument of false memory syndrome is so, there's people that like to default into that because they want to say, well, there's nothing valid about that, and where's your proof? You don't have anything that's substantiated, that kind of thing. And I'm going to say, for that, the people that want that, then that tells me that you are relying on the current criminal justice system to give justice or prove anything. And if you notice the name of it, it's a criminal justice system. It's not a justice system for the people or the public or the victims, right? So it's designed not for us. And it puts the burden of proof on the victim to come up with anything. And I'm yet to know anybody that was walking into any ceremony, with a camera or a mic on. I mean, they strip you naked all the time, and they're your handlers. You're going to report to them. Like it, there's so many different ways that this can be sabotaged, and they keep themselves secure, that asking for that kind of proof so that the justice system, the criminal justice system, can be satisfied and you can get doled out from the system that hurt you, their version of justice, is really, that's crazy making, and it's silly. Like, well, it really makes no sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I love that you said you find the person. Like, what we end up doing is we'll read, okay, I want to work with this person, and then we put all of the responsibility on them to heal us, and that has to shift. Go interview people, see how you feel about that. Step into that process with them. If you get to a place where you feel like you've hit a wall, and you honestly know that it's not you inside going, ooh, I'm discovering too much, and now I've got triggers going off, but it's actually them. You guys have hit an end point. Honor the end point. Say, I need to go find somebody else. I'm going to go interview some other people. But it's up to us. It's up to us to do this. It is our own self-led healing journeys that we really do need to rely upon. And that, again, is starving the beast. It is taking that responsibility and using your own life force energy for your own guidance. And this also invites God in it, invites, and angelic guidance to be there. Like, it really kind of up levels. And you got to know you're going to trip over a number of things. You're going to walk yourself into some things where you're going to be deceived. It's all part of unraveling and getting the feedback and realizing what it is. So be very kind.
How do you know what truth is unless you've understood betrayal or deception? That's exactly it. I came here to learn about truth. How am I going to know about truth unless I've experienced betrayal? Mm-hmm. Right? So we have to turn these things around. We have to. It's in our power. It's in our mind, guys. It's in our mind. We have the ability to shift our thoughts. We have the ability to change focus. The more you think about how god-awful things are and how terrible this, and the more you're regurgitating that disgusting, vomitaceous energy, the more you're going to create more of it, or the longer you're going to be in it. Focus on something that makes you feel good. Focus on something. Call a friend that makes you laugh. Go for a pedicure or manicure. Go for a walk around the block. Cuddle your cat. I don't care, but do something that just gets your momentum going in the other direction again. But I really have thoroughly enjoyed having this conversation with you, Asia. And I'm definitely going to be inviting you back within the next week or two. So guys, please watch the space. Asia and I will definitely rearrange another interview, but I want to give a shout out to the other channel that you are interviewed on as well.
Okay.
So if you can you give us the name of the other channel? And I don't know if Mornay is in the background, if you wouldn't mind just other than giving the name or even the link. Because what is the lady's name? So sorry, what is the name of the channel, Asia?
The Galactic Storyteller.
The Galactic Storyteller. She's also she's delightful. I watched her interview you, and she also exposes child transportation. I'm going to put it that way because never know. I mean, it's so crazy on YouTube. We get caught, and then the next thing, they're not striking our channel at the moment, thank God, or our videos, but now they're striking our monetization. You said that, now we're not monetizing you, whatever. So it's fine. It doesn't matter as long as but there are certain words we can and can't really say. Anyway, but I think she's a wonderful what is her name? If you want to maybe just tell us about the other channel that you're on.
The other channel, so her name's Madeline, and she and I ended up connecting. All of this has been very serendipitous. It's been God-led, I'm going to say. But we were able to, she does tell a little bit about, she did have a very active channel. And then at one point her website and her channel got hijacked. They just got taken over. So that and for other reasons, she took a break. It was about a 4-year break. And then she and I came together, we met and decided we were going to do a series of interviews to help educate people about the Mormon Church on different levels. And so the interviews are still continuing. They are on her channel. It's a very great, it's a synergistic relationship kind of idea. Like I feel like our communication is also kind of on the same level where it just flows really well.
Yeah.
And the idea and the goal, it is a great chemistry. And the goal is to really put out more education so people can navigate that on their own.
And that's why I really want.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I just want to get the names of the channel. It's the Galactic Storyteller.
Yes, the Galactic Storyteller. She's on YouTube. And then I have a podcast. It's called Letters to the People, where I'm telling. It's open for other victims to tell their stories or advocates to talk about their stories. I had to take a break for about a year from that, and now I'm going to be restarting telling my story more intimately on my podcast. So you're going to see more of that. I have a website, and I'm also doing some mentoring and coaching. I'm kind of developing some programs so people can do some self-led healing as well, some guidance and then sometimes I've got some clients right now, but I do one-on-one work also for people to get, for memory recovery and things like that. But if you want to visit the Galactic Storyteller, you're going to start seeing a series of things. And she was actually, if you go back in her YouTube channel, you'll see that she's talking about a number of the different ceremonies that Mormons do practice, like in the temple, or just even different things that they believe, just to give you kind of a background and a baseline of what that is, and how, if you can kind of look at it through the lens of social programming that is generational, you can kind of get a look at see how this is actually working. And I would suggest you take that model that is being presented, and if you can overlay it on maybe the world, because I believe the social programming that is present in the LDS, the Mormon Church, has been kind of a baseline model, as others throughout the world have been, other communities or other social cults have been, to really study and predict what people will do in certain settings. And so we kind of saw that roll out in the last, global issue.
Wow.
And a lot that happened during that, I recognized as conditioning, programming, and attitudes that I had been raised within the Mormon Church, which is kind of do your part, police your neighbor. They didn't call it policing. It's like having this very kind, like just looking after your brother. And
social construct. So it's already programming you for social construct, right? It's not like MK altering in the way that we understand it, that you guys have been through, but it's more like social, as you say, watch your neighbor, police your neighbor, make sure that the guy doesn't walk across a red robot, otherwise grab him and do a citizen's arrest. You know, you are a good public citizen when you help the police and the government do their job and put these bad people away. Wow, the ones
Well,
that
and it
weren't
really does create the whole form to the framework to look through, because you are a good person. Again, it's a really great way to exploit the desire of being a good person, but they're telling you how a good person should act. So it takes away a lot of critical thinking, and when you are in lockstep with it, then it makes it so you really don't question authority, which you're very much taught in the LDS Church, in the Mormon Church, to not question authority. The prophet is the one that's talking to God, and then he'll pass down that message. Below him, it goes out to the congregation. It never goes the other way up. Your personal opinion is always wrong if it battles the prophet. Like, the
doesn't
default is
matter.
always to that man. It doesn't matter. So that, in essence, also magnifies and reinforces the lack of self-trust, the submission to authority, and then really
Is
not
is
taking a lot
that
of
the bite
personal.
model? Is that what they call the bite model?
The bite model
Which
is
is
like, if you want to go to Stephen Hassan's website and just look up the bite model, BITE. There are traits that are listed that cults actually carry, and you can overlay those models onto a number of different things, whether it's a small community gathering that's telling you need to dress a certain way and shave your head and wear these beads and do these certain things if you want to sell their product. That is a very cult-like behavior. It fits the model. Or an entire religious institution that tells you what kind of underwear to wear, tells you, how you're supposed to, where you put your time, that you're covenanting and to donate everything in your life to the church, not necessarily to God, but they are posing as the receptor of God, so that
the
you're like,
middleman, God's middleman.
But you don't look at it that way,
God's
because
broker.
you're
God's broker.
That's right. You're God's broker, because God needs all of that, right? So
exactly.
Critical thinking is not reinforced a lot. So yeah.
Oh my gosh, we actually did, and again a couple of months ago, we did with Bryce. Actually, we did a whole decode, if you will, on the bite model. So if you guys haven't seen that yet, it's super, super interesting. It was over a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. We actually went through the bite model, and we spoke about the whole subtle programming and conditioning, and especially coming from churches. Exactly what you're saying. You get told how to think. You get told what you can and can't. It's like a mini version. It's like, no wonder governments and churches work so strongly together, because governments are using churches to condition. And now what we're understanding is that most churches don't have your best interest at heart to begin with. Even if your preacher might not even have an idea what's going on. He might be a really good guy who's just been brainwashed himself in theology school, whatever it is.
He's following protocol and following the direction, and it's when it's framed that this is from God or this is for your best. The most incriminating comment that I hear, even that repeated a lot, is when parents say, "I know better for you. What's better for you than you do," and you have the government telling us that, and we have the religion saying, "We know better than you do. We know what's best for you. God has spoken to us," or "We've done this study," or whatever. And if inside of you there's something that is like not in line with that, again, the default is to turn over your personal authority to the authority versus really taking some time. And that's the key. It takes time. It's very inconvenient. It's more convenient to be told what to do. It's less convenient because it takes more time for you to pause, check in, interpret what you're feeling or thinking or saying or what's coming, and then question it. Question is like, well, what exactly is this? Don't really grab onto the next label that the church or the government or your dad has given you. It takes very real, like, self-evaluation and self-observation. And a lot of people are just so busy or so distracted to even think about that they're going to take the first impulse that hits them as their inspiration, when maybe that's like harmonic frequency warfare hitting them. Like, and that's part of this
Exactly.
too.
And we have to discern. We've got to, and that's why if you are not living your best life closest to God, and I really mean that, if you are not in union with your divine creator, you're going to battle. Because then you are going to get the false priests and prophets and witches and warlocks that are going to be able to pull you off center. If you don't have a good self-concept about who you are and what you're worthy of as a human, and one of our viewers on the earlier show who knows the system back to front speaks about the human spirit is worth $6.5 trillion to the cabal. That's what you are worth to them in human dollars. So why would they pay so much money for you? Think about that. Because what you actually have within you is priceless. It is priceless. And I want to say again, and as I said before, according to interviews, we are really governed by a star system run by reptilians. We know that now, ruled by reptilians rather. On this side of our galaxy, there's apparently like 21. And what they do is when they take over the planets, as we know this crowd has done here, they literally pretty much want to dumb us down. So they're going to do whatever because they want slaves. So they create slaves by dumbing us down, right? But they want productive slaves. So the only way for us to transcend that, because one thing we have and they don't have, is consciousness. So when we raise our frequency, when we act in love, when we walk in love, genuine, not fake. You see, the one thing that never lies is energy, ever. When you're in your heart knows the truth. I don't care, and that's why I say, many people criticize me for my beliefs. I don't give a rat's backside. Those who know me, they know my heart. And when you know my heart, I know yours. And then what, you really think I'm going to let some idiot Bible verse tell me I'm not allowed to do this? You've got to be joking. Come on. The religion, in my opinion, is designed to keep us separated and segregated, in my opinion.
I'm going to back up your opinion on that. The isolation, the goal of isolation, and the intention of isolation is paramount, because when people are isolated, they are more easily controlled. And I'm talking isolation, not like we're going to sequester you in a little apartment physically, although that's part of it or could be part of it. It's really separating you from yourself, separating you from your family, separating you from your God, and then inserting what those gods should be or what that family should look like or whatever, and really creating a whole systemic disorientation and isolating you effectively from who you are. And then if you have different parts that have been created, different personalities, even those end up being isolated. So it's not necessarily the shortest journey, and it might not even be the easiest journey, but it's the most worthwhile one to actually discover you. Really put your time and your effort into knowing your value, knowing your worth, and not, again, like just not choosing to default into what you're used to, but taking a critical and loving look at what's coming at you. Are you reacting or are you responding? Are you choosing in? What are you agreeing to? Do you know what you're agreeing to? Like these things that are going to take time that you need to pause about is actually it creates more of a value, because that adds to your consciousness, right? And takes you more and more out of the slavery mentality, the slavery, just kind of like mindless drone kind of worker bee, into being more of an aware
connected.
being.
You've got to be connected. We have to connect. Roots, grow roots. Nothing can grow without roots. That's the whole thing. So we got to get our roots back. We've got to root back to our creator, our divine creator. That's what we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, wow, this has been a fantastic conversation. And as
I
you can
agree.
tell, we've gone just about half an hour over. But I've really enjoyed it. And as you can see, I've got Dark Vader that was breathing all over. Ding! Lights go off at 8 o'clock. I'm like, oh, I forgot about that.
Oh,
Quick
man.
ring light. Okay, as you can tell, I'm load shedding here again, but that's going to be the norm here in South Africa now for us. I can tell you that much for a
Mm-hmm.
while, anyway.
For a while.
So,
Mm-hmm.
guys and girls, I want to say thank you so very much for joining Asia and myself today for this incredible topic. When I say incredible, obviously, I just wish we never had to talk about these things, but another brave overcomer who's sharing her story, using her voice, creating a platform for more people to come out and speak and talk and just share with the world. Because the minute we start speaking, they can't stop us. The one
Mm-hmm.
thing they can't do is take our words away. So I want to just say thank you so much. Asia, is there anything else that you want to say to us or whatever, just in closing?
Wow. I would just encourage people to really learn to trust yourselves, really just love, like, and I'm not, yeah, love. Find out what that means and then step into what that could mean even more. And just know that maybe what you think is your equilibrium could be, especially if you have been or are, like really anchored into one belief system, your midline might be way over here, and releasing that is going to create a momentum to put you into a swing, and you may feel really disoriented, especially as you hear information like this. So just be very, very kind to yourself. Show that compassion to yourself as you really do give yourself the time as you look into who you are, and more of what makes you you, and that God spark that is within you. And yeah, I would just say keep moving along. So, and thanks for tuning in, for sure.
Yeah, indeed. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. And I will see you tomorrow again at 4 p.m. my time with Alice Parola. And we are again, Alice has, I forget her name now, but a licensed therapist who's going to be joining us on our series on mental disorders and the stigmas attached to that. So Alice is diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and has really done a fantastic job healing herself with her family, her husband, her kids. And it's all going back to the same thing: abuse, torture, and horrific treatment from a parent who a child loves and adores the most. Wow. Shattering. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Hey, my cat's even on TV tonight. She never allows herself to be on TV. That's Sahara. Her name is Sahara.
She's beautiful.
She is, and she's such a queen. That's why she never comes on. I'm like, yeah, I can't believe that you even came and sat next to me. Anyway, so she's come especially for you, Asia. Okay, all right, everybody. Much love, much gratitude, and thank you so much for watching. And again, a huge shout out to our Patreons for supporting our channel, to all of you who support us in buying us coffees and lattes and things. You guys are amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And for watching, just watching, sharing, subscribing, getting the message out there. Now is the time that more and more people have to know about this stuff. I know these aren't pleasant topics, but time for cognitive dissonance is verby, as we say in Afrikaans. Daai tyd is nou verby. That time is now over.
I love that.
Okay, everybody. God bless you. See you soon. Cheers.